What's up, Sifters? Welcome to GameFace episode 40. I can't talk today. Episode 405 on Sifted Games at SIFTD.net, where we will review the new Zelda, The Legend of Zelda, Echoes of Wisdom. We're also going to talk about the big state of play that happened last week. We're going to talk about Tokyo Game Show. We're going to talk about Assassin's Creed Shadows being delayed. It was a big news week, a big game week, and alongside me to discuss all of this is Matt Keil. What's up, Matt?
Just stacking beds.
Stacking beds. Jumping on trampolines. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Obviously, you guys know how we do stuff here on GameFace. We invite you guys to be a part of the conversation with us. So it will be interesting to see your guys' perspective on The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom versus Matt and I's. So get ready with your thoughts if you guys have been playing it all weekend like Matt and I have been. But we have a great show for you guys today. I'm pretty excited about it. Matt, how has your week been other than stacking beds?
I think okay.
Yeah?
What have been going on?
Anything exciting happened this week?
No.
No?
We did do a movie night on Saturday. We went, my friend Brian, who'd also directed two of the short films I produced, he did a cut down of the Hobbit movies.
Oh,
he did,
just for his own edification?
Yeah, just for his, he wanted to cut it down into a single movie that was just about Bilbo.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the Hobbit.
Yeah. It's like an exercise or whatever.
So he cut it down. All the extended. He took him a while. It took him like a year or something.
Wow.
But he cut it. He's a professional editor.
Mm-hmm.
He does editing for Access Hollywood and stuff. So this is in his spare time. He's just doing this. And this is a man who makes his own Blu-ray cases.
Yeah.
For his preferred,
he's really into it.
He's very important.
Also a good dude. I got a chance to meet him. He was a great guy.
So he did a cut down. And
how much did he cut it down to?
Oh, well, the extended editions of the Hobbit trilogy is what, like 12 hours,
yeah.
11 hours. So his cut it's cut in two parts. There's a disc break to keep with the extended edition, and I think the first half is like 110 minutes, and the second is 107. So like 15 minutes of that is credits.
Yep.
So it's about 3 hours and 20.
That's pretty good. I mean, that's some serious chopping, man.
I mean, there's so much pointless shit in there.
There really is, yeah. They're bloated for sure.
So we watched that. I think he calls it an unextended journey, and I call it the crew cut because that's his last name. So he doesn't want it. No, really.
Yeah. He just did it.
It's just for fun.
Because and
it actually was pretty good. Yeah. Like I hate those movies. Like
how did he fix like the music and stuff? Like if he cuts and the music's playing, how does it not just sound?
He
like
replaces it sometimes.
Okay.
I think he took some like he has the soundtrack, so I bet he pulled the
little
raw music
bits.
from the soundtracks and just sort of laid them under that or whatever.
Well, he's an editor, so he knows how to do it. Yeah.
He's rearranging some stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But it works out pretty well. It is a much better movie. Like it would work if you wanted to rewatch The Lord of the Rings, but you wanted to have The Hobbit included. It would work to watch his version and kind of be like, oh, that's good. But he's never gonna put it out.
Yeah. I mean, the legalities of that, forget it. Not worth it.
And everyone's like, you should put your name on it. He's like, I'm not putting my name on Peter Jackson's movie. That's not gonna happen. But it's always fun. Steven Soderbergh does stuff like he does black and white cuts of like other directors' movies and things, and likes to mess around with stuff. He does it like Soderbergh's black and white edit of Raiders of the Lost Ark is very interesting.
Can you find that on YouTube?
That's around. Yeah, you can find that around. But it was an interesting experiment, and as someone who really hated the Hobbit movies,
it was cathartic.
I saw the first one in the theater, and I was like, what the fuck was that? I was so mad at it. And then I watched the second one when it came to home because I didn't see that in the theater. And then the third one, I watched the first half hour and I hated it so much that I just turned it off. Like the mangling of the Bard and the Black Arrow thing was just too much for me.
Yeah.
So this was the first time I saw a lot of the last part. Of the I've never seen the ending before.
Watched it.
And it was funny because he was like, "Did you notice that this?" I'm like,
"No," because I never watched it.
I've never watched it, so it looked entirely natural to me. Like, well done.
That's great.
So that was a fun little experiment.
Yeah. Well, welcome to GameFace. This is the flagship show of Sifted Games at SIFTD.net. Before we get going, we are supported 100% at patreon.com/sifted. I'll bring that up right now for those of you watching the show. Again, supported 100%. So if you like the show, you want to see it continue, please head over there and give us a pledge for just $4 a month. You get all our content early. You get this show 4 days early. You get Pachter Factor a week early. Get all our other content at least 3 days early. That's way longer than most other gaming Patreons. You can go check yourself and verify. Another thing we do more than any other gaming Patreon is we bring our audience into the show. It boggles my mind, Matt, that other podcasts aren't doing this. Some of these Patreons that are getting $60,000, $70,000 a month, they don't recognize their patrons ever. It's really crazy. We do it here in Pachter Factor. If you guys help us out with Twitch Prime, your names are running along the bottom of Pachter Factor. You matter at our Patreon. Go to patreon.com/SIFTD, hook it up if you can. And if you can't do that, there's other ways to help us. You can just like the show, review the show, leave comments on the show. As I just mentioned, you can help us with Twitch Prime. All that stuff helps to keep the show going. We appreciate it very, very much. And with that, just one little piece of housekeeping before we get into the headlines in this week's episode. And that little headline is that you're probably wondering what the hell happened to Pachter Factor after last week. We did put up our first episode of Pachter Factor Live, and that was all about the PlayStation 5 Pro madness that's going on right now. And we actually recorded another one that's going up here in the next day or so, and that's all about Assassin's Creed Shadows being delayed. However, we have not recorded the big bulk of episodes in person. Pachter had an emergency. He couldn't do it at the last minute, so now that has been pushed to this Friday. So look for a call for questions for Pachter Factor here. Probably tomorrow it'll go up, both on SIFTD.net, at our Patreon, at our YouTube channel. Click on the community tab on our YouTube channel. That's where we always ask for questions from you guys there. We'll ask for it on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it. Any of those ways to get at us, to give us questions for Pachter Factor. We'll be shooting those on Friday with the Pac-Man himself. And with that, I think it's time to get on with the headlines. Here's the thing with today's show.
Yeah, catch up with the chat.
Oh, yeah, let me scroll down on the chat here. Oh, before we do that, though, let's go to chat so I can thank you guys, because there's a bunch of Twitch Prime in here. Bobson38, thank you. Lynn Jeff99, thank you. GetUpKid1284, thanks. Toon Medic, thank you. JamRain99, good to see you back in our chat after you came and visited me. I think, was he in last week? Was he in the chat last week?
Yeah, I think he dropped some subs.
You're right, he dropped some subs. Good to see you, JamRain. Who else we got in here? J. Reed Vic, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome, man. Toast9, thank you. Glottis21, thank you. So many people. Don Lionheart, thank you. And there's J. Reed Vic again, gifting a tier 1 sub. You're on like a 3-week streak, man. Thank you. That's awesome. Rosencrantz, thank you for subscribing at tier 1. That's awesome. Fire Native, thank you for Twitch Prime. Freedom Rock. Remember those commercials from, was it the 90s?
Yeah, or maybe late 80s. Even.
What was the line at the end? Turn it up.
Is that Freedom Rock, man? Yeah, man. Well, turn it up, man.
Right. Those commercials were great. I'm guessing that's what you're named after.
No, my brother, you must buy your own.
That's right. You have to buy your own. I forgot about that.
That was something to Funk Soul. I mean, I'm stealing that from...
You're combining two infomercials together.
I'm stealing it from that John Cusack movie.
Which one?
Say Anything.
Oh,
he quotes that in Say Anything with his nephew, I think.
One Super Master Gamer, thank you for Twitch Prime. Thanks to all you guys. I know some of you guys have subscribed with Twitch Prime yesterday, the day before. You'll do it tomorrow. Thanks to all you guys for doing it whenever you do it. It makes a huge, huge difference for us. And again, if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can give us a free $2.50 every month. It is free. If you like this show and you won't do that, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's Amazon is like giving you the money. Take it away from them and give it to us. Don't let them keep your money. It would be awesome if you could do that if you haven't been doing it. Big Dave Lazard, thank you for Twitch Prime as well.
I already kept my Commander decks this week.
No, really?
I ordered the new set of 4, like the Duskmourn Magic the Gathering Commander decks this week, and the box showed up on Friday, and it only had 1 of them in it. Because the tape was all ripped and the box was squished, and someone had taken the other 3 out of it. And they put it in.
They put 1 in there for you. They left 1 for you.
Well, they put the it wasn't stolen off the porch because they just put it on the thing, and I went out and got it, and it was empty. So somebody in the supply chain knew it was in there because one of those decks has skyrocketed in value, and now they're all sold out, and they wouldn't replace it. So I just had to take a refund, and now I don't get my decks.
That sucks, man. I'm sorry, Matt.
So that's annoying.
That blows.
They're not limited though, so they'll come back. But it's just a matter of like, I ordered those in July, assholes. Like, what are you doing? Like, stop labeling everything what they are, so people.
Every box should be plain. They should never ship anything in a box that has a logo on it or anything. Like, you're just asking for trouble. So I'm sorry to hear that, Matt. That sucks. Well, hopefully the next few hours are a little bit better than your shipping experience. Let's get into the headlines. Before we get going, there aren't that many headlines this week because we have a big bulk of the show today. As I mentioned, we're going to talk about Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I want to make sure we have plenty of time to talk about that. We're going to go through all the games that were in Sony State of Play. We're going to give you the highlights of Tokyo Game Show. So all 3 of those topics are going to take up a big chunk of time. So our headlines are a little smaller today, but the good news is that we run the news crawl on the bottom that will catch you up on a lot of headlines that we're not going to specifically talk about here on the show today. So also, there's a couple typos down there that I noticed before the show started. I mixed up a date for, I think, Assassin's Creed Shadows' new release date. I had February 14th, 2024 instead of 2025. And then like a couple stories later, I had 2025 instead of 2024. Forgive me. I did have to do a lot of stuff for this show, and every once in a while I do make mistakes, and I apologize. Darmist, thank you for Twitch Prime. Out of Baldy's Way. That's a great name. Out of Baldy's Way, thank you for Twitch Prime, man. You guys are both awesome. We appreciate it very much. Darmist, love your work. Keep it up. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Just the fact that you guys show up here every Tuesday at 1 o'clock our time, 4 o'clock your time, that's awesome. I mean, it's the middle of the workday for most people, so we really appreciate that you guys show up, and I think we reciprocate that by getting you guys into the show and making you guys a big part of it, and you guys make the show better. That's just a simple truth. So thank you very much for showing up, and thank you very much for Twitch Prime. Now let's get to the headlines. First headline, shocker to me, Matt, but I don't think it is to you, maybe.
No.
So the PlayStation 5 Pro, and if you watched Ask Shane Anything, that went up on last Thursday, then you've heard this story a little bit from me about what I went through trying to get a PS5 Pro and the PlayStation 30th anniversary stuff. But anyway, they went up on PlayStation.com for sale last week, and like the whole site just got annihilated with traffic. It was like going up and down. You could put something in your cart, but then you couldn't go to pay for it. It was just the typical thing that always happens when you try to pre-order something.
And Sony's PlayStation Direct is not a very good site
it's not.
to begin with.
They work with some kind of a third-party vendor to put people into like these groups where you're waiting to buy, and whatever that third party is not great.
No,
it doesn't work the way it's supposed
to. It's the
to.
Disney thing, and like Disney's not good at it either. But this is it's like a worse version of the terrible thing that already Disney does.
Yeah,
it's bad.
It is bad, and it was bad. Here's the irony. So I went there, Matt, to get the 30th anniversary stuff. I actually didn't even want like the base like PlayStation 5 Pro. I wanted the hot. I know you don't like it, but I really do. I wanted the 30th anniversary stuff.
I mean, I like it because it's worth $6,000.
Yeah, now it is. Yeah.
There is going to be a normal version though.
Oh, really?
Like there's the limited numbered one, and apparently they're doing a non-numbered version of this later.
That's kind of shady. For people who bought the numbered ones, that's kind of crappy.
Numbered one's still gonna be worth something.
Yeah, not as much probably though.
Well, not. I mean, the fact that the $6,000 prices were selling that day one is crazy.
It is crazy.
Like they're not going to be worth that when the dust settles.
Probably not. No way. I mean, that's the thing. You can put the price of them whatever you want. Yeah. Somebody has to buy it at that price.
I was just shocked that somebody bought it on eBay.
Yeah.
Like, at least a couple of them went for $4,000 to $6,000.
Well, this is all. That's all I got. What we just showed right there. All I got was the Portal handheld. That's it. I got in there. So here's the thing. Like they had actually set stuff up for the night before. And I got in there, and actually I was working with JM Rain. He was also trying to get this stuff as well, and he and I were texting back and forth.
I looked at it, but as soon as that waiting thing popped up, I'm like, oh, no, that's not going to happen.
So the night before, he and I both jumped on, and it looked like they were good to go, and they were ready. There was a message on there saying, hey, we're going to open these up at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, but you have your place in line right now. Do not close the tab on your browser, blah, blah, blah. I went to bed. I set my alarm really freaking early to get up by well before 7 a.m. to get it. By the time they started, I was like I had like an hour wait. So by the time I got in there, all the 30th anniversaries were gone, except for the Portal handheld, which I got. And I would just fully admit, I'm probably not going to keep it. I probably am going to sell it on eBay.
That's not worth really anything.
It's double. Like I got it for $200. It's selling for like $600 or whatever. I don't really want it. Like I was like,
no, I mean if you can get money out of a Portal, I guess go.
Yeah, because I had put so much time and effort into this that by the time I got there, I'm like, I'm not coming away empty-handed. I'm gonna get something. So I did buy the Portal, and I did get the Portal. I think that's coming here in like a couple months or whatever. But all the 30th anniversary stuff was sold out, and I was so dejected. I did not even think to check if they just had the normal PS5 Pro for sale.
Yeah, I didn't realize it also went up.
Me either. I just closed it out and was like, F. I didn't get it. That sucks. And then I started talking to JM Rain, and I thought he was also going for the 30th anniversary version. He wasn't. He just wanted the PS5 Pro, and he got one. And then I realized, oh, are you crapping me? Like, they had the PS5 Pro normal version up there, and he's like, yeah. I jumped back in, I tried to get it, and, like, I kept having the same crap happen. Wouldn't let me put it in the cart, wouldn't let me pay for it, blah, blah, blah. I just gave up, basically.
Well, it's still there. I just looked.
Well, that's why we're talking about it.
You're fine.
As it turns out, the base PlayStation 5 Pro never sold out. It still has not sold out. All that happened was that PlayStation's website choked and couldn't handle the traffic, so people just assumed...
But as soon as the 30th anniversary stuff was gone,
it started clearing up.
Yeah.
I mean, I did try to get it after that stuff was gone, and I was still having problems with the card or whatever.
Right.
But I just gave up. But you can go right now and buy a PlayStation 5 Pro.
Yeah.
No, they did not sell out.
Well, neither did the PS4 Pro.
Right.
So,
it didn't, yeah.
I mean, I thought this might sell out just in the scalper.
Mm-hmm.
In the
just
scalper
for people trying to make money, yeah.
Because like people would think that, but apparently even the scalpers weren't that confident.
They know. I think, well, one, they know the price is crazy, and a lot of people,
Yeah.
maybe the demand isn't quite there.
And I'm sure a lot of the scalpers used all their budget on the 30th anniversary stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So the PlayStation 5 Pro still hasn't sold out, Matt. What does that tell you?
I mean, it's just like the PS4 Pro. It's a niche product. It's not really going to sell to a ton of people, and you're going to kind of sit there and wonder why they make it. But here we are.
Do you think what does it say about the price and maybe the price of the PlayStation 6 ultimately?
I don't think this is anything about the price of the PlayStation 6.
No,
I've never thought this was connected to the price of the PlayStation 6. It's going to depend what hardware they put in the PlayStation 6, and it may be completely different chipsets, or it's not going to be incompatible.
You don't think this may be a little bit of a litmus test to see what people are willing to pay for a console?
No,
because see if they're willing to pay $700.
Not in any way, shape, or form. Because this is not a new console to the 98.9% of people in the world. This is a refresh, a slight power bump refresh to a system you already own.
Mm-hmm.
Like a PlayStation 6, a new console, or actual new console with a new number on it. There's hype behind that is not remotely even attempted to be replicated here. Like, there's no launch lineup. There's no new anything. There's no new design on the controllers. There's no OS. Like a PlayStation 6 is exponentially more newsworthy and exciting than this thing. So no, I don't think the idea of what people are willing to pay for this has anything to do with what people would be willing to pay for a PlayStation 6.
Do you think the jump from the base PS5 to PS5 Pro is bigger or smaller than the jump will be from PS5 Pro to PlayStation 6?
I mean, it better be smaller.
But do you think it's going to be that much smaller? If it comes, let's say PlayStation 6 comes out 3 years from now.
It depends on how consistent their philosophy is here. Like, how much is Mark Cerny lying to us in these promos, basically? Because if you really think that the future and what people want, what do we say, 80 or 70% of the people, they pick performance. If you really are leaning into the idea that people want performance over bells and whistles and visuals, then the focus on the PS6 design should be running these things well.
High frame rates.
Making it not focusing on ray tracing, tanking the performance in exchange for nice screenshots. You should be looking at making sure these things run at 60 out of the gate, and maybe you don't need to do a Pro for something like that, because you're getting diminishing returns on the actual raw visuals. That was
really my question.
At this point, you're going to want to have performance. Want these things to be smooth, and I think that's going to lead you to a different hardware configure. However, since this thing is not really blowing the doors off anything, maybe they're like, well, maybe people don't really want to go. But that doesn't add up. That doesn't add up with what they claim their data says about what people are choosing to play these games in. The thing is like, people clearly pick performance over quality. That doesn't mean they're going to pay $700 for a little marginal bump in how well the performance. I mean, the only game I've really seen in comparison stuff that looks night and day, wow, that's a difference, is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
It is a drastic upgrade.
That looks like the difference between having your glasses on and not having them on. Like the image quality bump on that is substantial.
Drastic, yeah.
But like, other than that, it's just
I mean, we're seeing a montage of PS5 Pro footage right here.
$700 for like nice to have is a hard sell for anybody. And like, even as someone probably with the disposable income to do that, I don't have any interest in getting that.
I am still getting the PS5 Pro. I don't know when. Now that I've kind of lost the moxie over it, I don't know when I'm going to do it. But I will buy one eventually, for sure. Maybe now for me, because here's the thing, Matt. I think this has caught PlayStation off guard, because on October 10th, pre-orders at like Amazon and GameStop, they're all supposed to open then. What happens, though, if we get to October 10th and they still have supply at PlayStation.com? Like,
I don't mean there are people who would prefer to buy through those outlets because they have cards. Tied to those
I have a lot of
and
credit
like
on
that.
Amazon.
I don't know. It just doesn't. I don't think we can really make that judgment unless we know actual numbers of what they sold versus what they were expecting to sell.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine they were really expecting this to sell out.
Really?
Yeah, but because the PlayStation
or maybe
4,
by October 10th,
the PS4 Pro didn't.
Yeah.
So like and you got time. Yeah. I mean this is not a new system. I mean as much as they want to claim it is, most people don't even know this exists.
Yeah. It's true.
Certainly my casual friends don't know what this is, and it doesn't look any different, so even if they saw it on the shelf, they might not.
Yeah, it's hard to tell the difference for sure, unless you are people like us who have a trained eye and we know exactly the little nuances that separate. And then if you start talking about the slim...
this might have been a good time to change the default color to black.
Yeah, you're probably right, actually.
Just to really... But also they're sort of caught in that thing where they're not really trying to make it a new system, they're also just trying to make kind of a new SKU on top of the new system, but it's like, I don't know why you wouldn't, it's pro, it's black, it's sleeker, it's darker, it's for the pro gamer kind of thing. I would think you'd lean into that somehow.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't even interfere with the 30th anniversary thing because the 30th anniversary version looks totally different.
Yeah.
So I think I would have gone to visually distinguish it more from the base model, especially if you're not discontinuing the base model, which seems like they aren't.
Not. Yeah.
So I don't think that extra triple stripe the little
it's hard for the average person to notice.
I don't think that little PlayStation 2 front reference thing is really doing it.
No, I agree.
So I don't know. I don't know what Sony's doing. They just replaced 2 CEOs this week. Not Sony Interactive, but
Sony proper.
Sony itself is going through some juggling.
It's been going through some things for a while now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, PlayStation has pretty much been the brand propping up Sony now for quite a while. So I'm interested to hear what you guys are saying. Like, did you guys try to get it? Are you going to try to get it? Like...
we were right that the 30th anniversary thing was going to be $1,000 though. Mm-hmm. That was indeed the price.
Yeah, we got the price right on that one. I mean, to be honest with you, Matt, considering the price of the PlayStation 5 Pro, that's actually a pretty good deal because you get headphones and you get the portal and it's loaded with a bunch of extra stuff.
You're not really getting screwed on that one.
Yeah, other than the base $700 price for a console.
But it's they aren't charging you a premium for it being the 30th anniversary version. You're just getting a big chunk of stuff.
Yeah. Let's see what you guys are saying about it. Mike's Q says, to be honest, the visual difference really might not be able to be seen through compressed YouTube videos. That's a good point, too. I think if you showed someone the difference side by side on a pair of 4K OLED TVs, it would be easy to pick out. It would definitely be easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would notice in person easily.
Yeah. Erebus Jones says, no, it was too expensive for what it is. I upgraded my PC instead. Fair enough. I can understand that perspective. Retro Modern Gamer says, as I said in my one Pachter factor question about diminishing returns being reached with 4K, ray tracing at a high frame rate being reached, I don't know what game companies will do once their hardware does that, just sell games from then on. Yeah.
Somewhat. I mean, I guess you got to get, like I've said before, I think you're down to weird nitty gritty stuff, like making sure cloth doesn't clip through legs and shit. You're really down to polish being but that's not going to sell more copies of something.
No.
It annoyed me every time Batman's cape clipped through his arm spikes, but it's not like it sold less because of that. So it's not worth that kind of effort unless you really have nothing else to do. But it's so expensive to keep developers on full time now that you're talking about spending hundreds of thousands of extra dollars in the budget to do these little tweaks that are not, your brain might notice, but it's not going to notice to the point that it would change the sales or change the reception of the game. Mm-hmm. You're hitting a point where it's games are just going to look like this now, and
that's it. To be honest, that's that.
What else can you do?
Yeah,
I guess you could start doing photoreal, but who cares? Photoreal isn't useful for every game. It's like those mods that
I get tired of it too. I don't want.
It's like those mods that make Cyberpunk look like the real world, and I'm just okay. First off, this is all just the real world on the cloudiest day ever, which is because the diffused light makes it much easier to look realistic, and also it doesn't look like Cyberpunk anymore. It just looks like a gray day in LA.
I agree.
It's I don't like that.
It loses its style.
Why do you want to suck all the character out of this city and make it? I mean, it's it's a little.
It's mind blowing when you look at it, but
there's people that's oh, this is how I play the game. I'm well, then you are boring.
Yeah, you've lost the aesthetic of the art.
You're sucking the character out of all of it.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of the reshade tweaks do that too. It's just I want everything to look this weird flat. It's everyone complained about gray and brown for a whole generation, and now everyone just wants to make everything look gray and brown.
Yeah, because it's realistic. Silk Snake says, do you think, and by the way, guys, if you ever want us to address your questions or your comments, always go at Sifted Games. It makes it easier for us when we're doing the show live to be able to find the stuff that you want us to respond to. Silk Snake says, do you think Sony was trying to grab iPhone-type people who buy a phone every year with a new feature? I mean,
I'm sure that came up in the meetings.
I'm sure it's been mentioned, but it's so impractical to expect something like that to happen.
Well, and also remember that Apple does all that at once. Like, you can buy the Pro the same day the normal one and whatever the other Max thing is, the SP or whatever they call it.
The one that's basically the iPad.
Yeah, basically, the ones that doesn't fit in anything but a giant purse. Basically. But it's like you can just buy, you just choose one, basically. It's more modular that way.
It makes more sense that way.
So it's like, it's one, again, like if this had launched with the PS5 vanilla, then I might have a different opinion. Like it's like, oh, so for $200 more, I get much better performance and image quality, and I haven't already spent $500 on this thing, like several years, like 4 years ago. Then I might decide to make, much like I buy the best graphics card I can. Like, I might be willing to make that jump if the Pro was available at launch.
Day one. Yeah, then it does make a difference. You're right. But doing it every year, that's impossible for consoles. There's no way any manufacturer's going to be able to put out a console every year.
No, iPhone does like every 2 years now, I think.
Does it?
I think so.
I thought it was every year still.
Every year?
I think so.
They do a little refresh. I mean, I don't know.
Some years they're not really a new phone.
I don't pay attention because I don't buy I have iPhones, but I don't buy a new iPhone until my previous iPhone stops being able to make it through the day with one
the battery charge. Me too.
Which usually takes about 3 years.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I do too. I think a lot of people are that way now. Nobody really upgrades every year
I don't
anymore.
care what number iPhone.
I don't either. There's not big jumps anymore like there used to be between them. Olfen says people pick performance because that is often the default. That's a good point.
That's true. I mean, a lot of people probably don't even realize that option's there, and it's usually the thing that starts on. So
because you have to dig into the menus to find it, and like
that's one thing, and I'm sure they have that telemetry. Is like, okay, how many people actually switched between them and ended up choosing performance?
Right.
And even that doesn't necessarily tell you anything because some of that's got to be someone seeing that option and going like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. I'm going to go back
to does almost always default to performance every game.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time.
To quality.
Sometimes I don't remember to look, but I can't remember the last time I looked and it started on quality.
Yeah, it's not very normal. And then Silk Snake says, PS6, 12K, 400 frames per second.
You joke, but
Erebus Jones, thank you for Twitch Prime,
I saw some weird. I mean, we're not talking about it till next week, but the people were complaining about the terrible performance of the Metaphor ReFantasia demo on PC, and I played it, and like it was fine. I was like,
well your
but
PC
wait,
is a
but wait. My PC has nothing to do with this.
You don't think?
No. I'm like,
you're not just brute forcing it?
I'm getting there. Hang on. I'm like, what's going on? So I started looking more into it, and because I'm playing the game at 60 frames. It's rock solid. It's like locked. Like, my God, what's the problem here? These people were trying to play this thing at like 140 frames a second and were mad that it was dipping to 97. I'm just like, okay, guys, it's not a multiplayer competitive shooter. Like, there's. I mean,
it's like context always matters.
Now, I mean, to be fair. It does look like a PS4 game, so it's kind of like you probably should be able to run this thing at like 300 FPS on a 3000 card. But people, I mean, it's like, okay, like now you have PC gamer brain. I'm sorry, you've lost the plot. Like you don't need it to run that high. Like unless it's like a competitive action
it's
game.
It's a turn-based JRPG.
It's Persona with more swords.
It's the last game where frame rate matters.
So I thought that was kind of fun because it's like, okay, you can go too far the other direction too.
The Abrams says he's played at 120 frames and it runs fine. So.
Yeah, but these people were trying to run 144 hertz kind of shit. Like they were trying to go ultra high. I was like, I don't even know why you'd want to see that art in that. I mean, it would look really unnatural, I think.
Vincent says the other thing is I wouldn't be surprised if half the people don't have a 4K TV. It does feel like most people have 4K TVs now.
To some degree. I mean, I think you're kind of, if you buy a new TV in the last 4 or so years, you're getting a 4K TV because they're all 4K now.
This is all feeling, by the way. This is not fact. This is me just anecdotally knowing people and being like, everybody I know has a 4K TV at this point.
Yeah, even the people that don't know they have 4K TVs tend to have 4K TVs at this point.
So. Yeah, my mom has 2 4K TVs, and she's in her 70s. So.
Not to say they're all going to be good.
Yeah, yep. Not Cirque. Thank you for Twitch Prime. See if anybody else jumped in here at the last minute. I think that's it. So anyway, I was bummed I didn't get the 30th anniversary stuff, Matt. I didn't think I was going to get it, though. Like, I knew. Even though I started the night before, I knew I wasn't going to get it. I knew the bots were going to come in there and jump the line and get stuff, and I wasn't going to get anything. I was still bummed.
Like, the whole waiting system and lobby system is supposed to be an anti-bot measure, but it just seems like it screws over normal people more than anything else.
It seemed like what it was trying to do was taking the bulk of people that came in and then randomly putting them into different waiting rooms.
Yeah, that sounds probable.
So even if you were first, you could end up getting screwed, or you could be last and still get one.
Yeah, even if you showed up like an hour after it opened, you might end up in there pretty quick. Like, I've had that happen with Disney tickets. For
really?
Things. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it didn't work for me this time, so no 30th anniversary edition for me. I will get a PS5 Pro. Probably what I'm going to do now is ask for it for Christmas and just have everybody in my family pitch in like 50, 75, $100 until I have enough to get it. I do have some credit, so maybe I'll just ask for gift cards for Amazon and add that to what I already have in there, and then maybe I can just buy it myself. But my goal is before the end of the year to have a PlayStation 5 Pro. We'll see how I end up getting it, but that's kind of my goal. So we'll see. Are you planning on getting one at all?
I'm in no hurry.
Yeah.
Really. Like, I'd probably get one before the next big exclusive to have it run well, but I'm like. Tell me when that is.
Nobody
right?
knows.
Like, I'll get one for Ghost of Yotei.
Yeah.
Like, that's basically what's in my head right now.
That makes sense.
That's the next thing they're putting out that I know I'd want to play at the maximum fidelity.
God of Gambler says 33. I waited in line, then got booted off. That happened to me once too. I could have gotten a Portal or the Pro controller, but it's not worth the price. Yeah, I'm just being honest with you. I got the Portal just to flip it. Like, it will pay for one of my flights home at the holidays, basically. And that's how I looked at it. Because it's like I had invested so much time. I'm like, I'm not coming away from this completely empty-handed. And then I thought to myself, maybe I'll get the Portal and I want to keep it. That's not going to happen. I have really no use for the Portal at all. So there you go. That's the big, not so big story of PS5 Pro. You can go buy one right now at PlayStation.com if you want one. Go get yourself one if you're into it and you got disposable income. Next up. Assassin's Creed Shadows has been delayed to February 14th, 2025. This one hurt, but I have to say that you and I, Matt, were privy to some information that was going on behind the scenes. After last week's show, Matt and I talked about it privately, off air, and we kind of knew something funky was going on, and we suspected that this might happen, although Matt and I had kind of come to the conclusion that we didn't think it was going to be delayed based upon what we knew.
Because some of the people I knew who would know thought it was a problem with the demo they were showing.
Yeah,
but I
for
guess,
Tokyo Game Show.
Yeah, Tokyo Game Show and the press previews they were going to do. But like I guess whatever the problem there was something they decided was must have been applied to the full game. So, I mean, probably better to have this thing. There is that element of. Like, you don't want this coming out and having that like, playing Outlaws at launch felt like I was sort of walking on paper. You know, it could
held together
go at any
with
moment,
like chewing gum and string.
Yeah, and I'm replaying Dragon Age Inquisition right now, and it still feels like that. 10 years. Like, well, it's the Frostbite engine. It feels like it barely. There's times when like my character just stops moving, and I have to like fast travel to get her to walk again. It's bizarre.
A decade later, that's pretty crazy.
It's but like, I can see, and people had crazy things where like, the chuds were like, they're removing Yasuke. It's like, no, they're not removing Yasuke, you fucking idiots. But like, the more rock solid you can make this thing performance wise and just stability wise, the better. And they got rid of the season pass, like,
right? Which is good.
It's going to launch with what would have been the first season pass DLC.
Yep,
which is a pretty cool.
I think it was the right decision because we also found out today that internally, people at Ubisoft have been calling for this to be delayed for months and months. So it looks like I think Star Wars Outlaws maybe taught Ubisoft a little bit of a lesson and was like, we can't have 2 bombs in a row here. Especially with Assassin's Creed, your own IP.
Well, it's like Outlaws is also seems to be an example of misplaced expectations. Like, they're all freaking out that it only sold 1 million in the first month and all that. But here's the thing: like, Jedi Survivor did very, very well. Jedi Survivor sold 600,000 in the first week, and in the end, I think probably came pretty close to 2 million in the first month. And everyone's talking about I can tell you why that happened, because Cal Kestis is a Jedi.
Yeah.
And Kay Vess is not.
Yeah.
That's it.
It is.
If Kay was swinging a lightsaber in those commercials, you would have sold double what you did. Because I'm sorry, not to rip Outlaws. Obviously, I like it. I played it for like 50 hours or something, and I like Kay, and I like all that stuff. But like, Nyx is adorable, etc., etc. But the underworld thing is the least interesting part of Star Wars, and when you separate it out from the rest of Star Wars, it's really uninteresting.
Yeah, it is.
And like the Mandalorian, and everyone says the Mandalorian was not a hit because it was a bounty hunter doing underworld shit. The Mandalorian was a hit because of baby fucking Yoda, because that gave you the connection to the Force and the Jedi and the main
and you
stuff.
hope that eventually that stuff would start being incorporated.
Yeah, you're
going to
see some, and sure enough, it was.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker showed up. You got some Jedi stuff. He started choking Cara Dune. Like those, there's a lot of it got all the Star Wars stuff together. It managed to bring the mystical together with the gunslinging.
Yeah,
and this doesn't have that.
Yeah,
and that's it. Like it's like,
I agree.
And you want everyone searches like it's a big mystery why Solo was the only Star Wars movie that lost money because it was just a guy with a gun. Yeah. Doing crime shit.
The game is the same
no
thing.
one cares. Like, that's not what Star Wars appeals to.
I would love to hear one day whose decision it was to make it based on that. Whether it was Lucas that pushed for it,
I guarantee it was Lucasfilm.
Yeah, I bet
Lucasfilm is extremely stingy about Force stuff.
Yeah.
You've seen, I'm sure, the interviews with Stig and the Jedi team about how when they first said they wanted to do Jedi stuff, Lucasfilm said they hadn't earned Jedi. And he was like, we just want to make a game that sells.
Yeah, we just want to make money on this game that we're going to work on for 4 years.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
It's like, and thank God they won that fight because, like...
Well, Ubi didn't.
No, Ubi did not. And I'm sure... I mean, if I'm Ubi, I understand why Ubi would look at that game concept and be like, we can make that work. Because they have in the past.
Yeah.
But it's just not... What makes Star Wars the same? I mean, and it did. 1 million copies in a month is pretty good, but it's probably not pretty good for the amount of money you spent making that game, and the licensing and the revenue sharing. And I mean, it's I don't see any way to really spin that as a success. But it's a little bit of a Square Enix situation where it's like, if you were more realistic about what this thing was going to do, just by the nature of what it is, maybe you wouldn't be so disappointed and caught off guard when you actually end up getting a very predictable result.
Mike's Q brings up, do you think the Japanese-specific ire is justified as it is their territory? As I understand it, Shadows was mentioned in Japan's parliament because of huge cultural things. Actually, as it turns out...
That is not true.
That is not true. And what was happening was, it was the chuds from America going to Japan and carpet... That's how pathetic... These people.
They were carpet bombing Japanese forums and Japanese like submissions with Google translated complaints.
That is how pathetic these people are. That is sad and pathetic.
I have not seen a single. I've watched several things with actual Japanese historians being like, "No, this looks pretty good." And the main complaints about the historical inaccuracies were architecture mistakes.
Yeah,
and they said that's one of the things they're going to start fixing. Because that was one of the interesting insights was. That they and a lot of people who were trying to kind of blow the whistle internally also said they brought the historical consultants in too late. And they hit to the point, it was late enough that when the historical consultants were like, these buildings should be more like this, the art team was like, we're not going to... We already did all that. They
probably didn't have the polygons either to, the budget. It's like, we already spent all the polygons.
It was the time.
Oh, really?
They didn't want to redo all the art.
Yeah.
Because it's like, we already made the building. There's probably 10 people on the planet they're going to notice that.
And it's all rigged and everything already. It's a lot of work to have to
and she's got to be able to climb on all of it, and we got to redo all that. But, in the end, they seem to have realized in the wake of it is sad that that Ubisoft seems to be actually addressing some of the chud reactions to things, because just ignore these fucking idiots.
Ubi's doing the same thing. It's like their boss is like, oh, we make games for everybody. It's like, just don't even address this crap. You're giving them
these people
oxygen.
Don't play them anyway. Like, you look at some of this stuff and you're like, you have not played this game.
Yeah, they're just it's pathetic.
Like, everyone's screaming about the actress doing the voice of the main character in Ghost of Yotei, and it's like, did you know she's one of the player character voices in Dragon Age 4? No, because they didn't figure that out yet, and they're not whining about it yet.
Vortex Complex has the right approach. He says, or she, I don't know which we are. It says, I just ignore that type of stuff on social. Scroll right past it. Yeah. I mean, I do too. Like, I don't have time for these people in my life anymore. My time is finite now. I'm middle-aged. I'm starting to realize I only have X amount of time in my life left, and I am not going to waste it on dumb crap like that. I'm just not. It's not worth it. There's another good comment up here that I got lost in the mosh somehow. Obi-Wan, I think, made it. Where'd your comment go, Obi-Wan? Emperor Dread, thank you for Twitch Prime, by the way. I don't see it now.
Obi-Wan 9000 around.
Yeah, here it is. Yeah, don't want to sound funny, but is 4 extra months enough?
I mean, that was my first question.
Yeah, I mean, that's not much, man.
That's not a lot of time to...
I mean, that sounds like just fixing the big bug and, like...
I mean, you can put some polish on it, but it's not like, you know... Like, when I think of stuff like this, I think of that time where I think it was Raven was making that... Wolverine game, Wolverine Origins, and then the movie got delayed a year, but the game was already pretty much done, so they got an extra year to just polish it, and that Wolverine Origins game is fantastic. Like, it's one of the best comic book games ever made, because they had a year of polish time. I mean,
they were like, the game's done.
The game was complete. They literally had nothing else to do but just make it
every little part of it
every little tiny bit, and it's just like that game.
It pays off.
Still great,
particularly for people like us.
How in the world have you not like remastered that one?
I know.
Like
licensing,
sure, but like fuck, it's Microsoft owns that now. They bought Activision. Go fucking talk to Disney and get some of these good Marvel games back on the market.
Yeah.
People would absolutely buy a better version of Hulk Ultimate Destruction.
And Erebus Jones says, I don't know if Kay was Han Solo and you were allowed to shoot people. I think it would have turned heads too. Maybe.
We'll see how Indiana Jones does. I don't know if Harrison Ford can really open a game.
Yeah. Seriously, though. Yeah.
Well, if you do young Han Solo, then you're like, what, does he look like Alden, what's his name? Because nobody really,
Yeah.
That movie's not terrible. I don't think it's very good, but like
I struggled to get through it.
It's a boring movie. Like Solo is boring, which is... I mean, I was gonna say you don't see in Star Wars much, but I've seen the prequels, so it's like, I mean, episode
well,
2.
There were boring moments in those. I found Solo really boring.
Solo is a very dull film.
Yeah.
In part because they kill the two most interesting characters off in the first 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then like you don't see like the most interesting movie to make out of that would have been his 2 years in the Imperial Army.
Yeah.
Because you're like, what the hell would that would have been like? Because that's the only part. That's a part we don't know anything about. Whereas like, yeah, we know he's a smuggler and he's friends of the Wookiee, and the whole thing is like, well, how did he get those dice? Well, some girl gave it to them.
Yeah.
Gave it to him. How did he get his gun? Some guy gave it to him. How did he get his ship? Some guy lost it to him. How did he meet Chewbacca? Some guy threw him in a hole with him. How did he get his name? Some guy gave it to him. It's just like there's no interesting answers here.
You're right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Movie should have been about either Kira or Orlando, and he should have been a cameo, and that would have been it.
I do wonder, I don't know if I could answer this
myself.
It's
also so dark.
It is,
like, you can't, like, literally physically lighting
I felt like
dark.
I was squinting the whole time watching it.
In the theater and watching it again at home, I'm like, I can't see anything, and I don't know why. Like, there's no reason for it. It feels like a mistake or a post-processing problem or something. It was very weird.
Do you think this is the right move? Because they're now moving the release out of the holiday season where everyone spends money into February. I mean, it'll be better, so it'll probably get a better score.
Stuff does well in this, plenty of hits have happened in that first quarter.
Yeah.
February is getting a little crowded.
Real crowded.
So I don't know if they've saved their... Because I feel like this November, was it November it was coming out in? Like November 14th?
It's supposed to come out in November, yeah.
I feel they're kind of free and clear at that point. Call of Duty's already out. Dragon Age is already out. You're not really up against anything important. Nintendo doesn't have... Unless Nintendo has some kind of secret weapon up their sleeve, which I don't think they do.
No.
It's like...
We're going to talk about its secret weapon
You kind of got the whole field open up until Christmas at that point. But, I guess word of mouth could kill it if it really launched in a poor state.
I think ultimately the higher, assuming it's going to get higher review scores, I think the higher review scores will help it in the long run sell more copies.
Unless it doesn't get higher review. Who
right.
knows? Like, I do think...
You would think they'd be able to improve it in some way.
It's probably the smart thing. This wasn't the same day as Dragon Age.
It wasn't?
It was the same... Ethan says the same day as Dragon Age. No, it wasn't. It was not Halloween.
That's definitely not why it was delayed.
No.
Definitely not. We know some stuff that's going on behind the scenes.
Maybe it was on Halloween, like, long ago. And moved to November 14th.
Guys, we know some stuff that's going on behind the scenes. We know why this happened. But we're not privy to really share it with you guys. It wasn't because of Dragon Age.
Nobody's that afraid of Dragon Age.
No.
I think this makes sense in the sense that... their last two underperformances have been Outlaws and Avatar. Avatar did terrible.
Tanked, yeah.
And
deserved far better.
It's probably smart that it's probably smart that they want to really take care with their original IP that is not licensed by anybody else. Like, because if they're going to benefit the most from this being the biggest hit.
Oh yeah, they make all the money on this game.
They've got 2 more Assassin's Creed projects in the pipeline. Like, if this thing tanks, like, they don't have a strategy going forward even less than they already do.
I'm really hyped for Hexy. I think it's going to be the best one that's in development. I hope it is anyway. So anyway, that's the latest on Assassin's Creed Shadows. We hope it's all for the good, because at the end of the day, what do we really care about? We really care that the game is as good as possible. I think you guys are that way too.
Yeah, especially
if you got to wait a couple months.
I mean, technically, you've waited over a decade for the feudal Japan Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, seriously.
This has been a request since 2, essentially.
Yeah. And we're about to get it, and hopefully it'll be cleaned up at least a little bit and better than it would have been if they released it this year.
I get it into a condition where it feels like it matches up to these gameplay demos you've shown me, because like these all look super solid.
Yeah.
And if I got this and it was all this janky nonsense, I would be very, very disappointed in that.
Yeah. So anyway,
it's kind of a big moment for Assassin's Creed. They're going back to a different historical period. They're leaving the ancient. They're sort of like melding what they tried to do in Mirage with like the ancient open world thing they've already done, but moving back towards a more traditional approach to the series. Like, this is almost a soft relaunch.
I like all the things they're saying.
Yeah.
We'll see if they are actually great.
Two very different characters. Like this is a much more interesting character dichotomy than Syndicate had, because like Jacob and Evie played pretty much.
They were pretty much the same, minor, just a girl version of the same character.
This looks like totally different. You're
literally
picking a different way to play the game, which is great.
Yeah, makes a big difference. So anyway, there you go. Assassin's Creed Shadows coming on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
2025.
Happy birthday to me.
Yeah. Is that your birthday's on Valentine's Day? That's right. Wow, how perfect is that, Matt?
That happens a lot.
Yeah?
Valentine things
come
out
that
around
they put
on
games
that day
out.
Pretty often.
Yeah.
And it's better than this year. The Valentine's Day release was Madam Web, so
yeah.
It's,
this is an upgrade. At least I hope it is.
Up. Yeah.
Yep. We also got news this week, moving on in headlines, from Tony Hawk himself. First of all, he posted, I don't know if you saw this or not, culturally, he posted a photo of him with his grandchild.
Yeah.
Do you realize the grandchild is also the grandchild of Kurt Cobain, because his son is with Bean Cobain, Kurt Cobain's daughter.
Also, the kid's name is Ronan Hawk.
Really?
It's like, yeah, 4 names.
I missed that part.
His name is Ronan Hawk, and I'm like, what in the RPG protagonist is this?
Well, the mom's name is Bean.
Right, but it's like, if anyone can save this world, it is Ronan Hawk. Like, that kid's gonna learn how to use a sword.
Yeah,
like, that's
he better.
Come on.
Yeah. So anyway, just seeing...
I saw a tweet that had it was related, retweeting that picture, and it's like, you know what? Close enough. Welcome back, Jesus.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it was hard though to see a picture of Tony Hawk as a grandpa.
Yeah.
Tony
Hawk is yeah, he's as old as
he still skates like crazy.
You know what the age thing that hit me this last week that I was like, what the fuck? Tim Waltz, VP candidate Tim Waltz, is younger than Weird Al Yankovic.
Really?
Weird Al Yankovic is 64.
He's also a huge Dreamcast fan, and they put him in Crazy Taxi as one of the drivers in a mod, which is awesome.
He's a big Dreamcast guy.
Really
and
cool.
There's a wonderful little video clip of him meeting an orange cat and asking to pick the cat up and getting his picture taken with this orange cat.
I saw it. The cat weighs like 400 pounds.
Yeah, well, orange cats. Yeah, but I'll tell you, orange cats know.
Yeah.
If an orange cat likes you, that's a
good
huge
sign?
endorsement.
All right.
That's a much bigger endorsement than any celebrity.
Well, so Tony Hawk, he's a grandpa now, which makes us all probably feel at least a little bit old. But the bigger story here is that another Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is on the way. He hinted at it for a couple days and was like, hey, I'm working on some stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, I think it was day before yesterday or like over the weekend, he's like, okay, it's coming. I'm working with Activision on it. I'm already doing mocap on the game. So Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is coming back. Now, Matt, somebody asked me on Ask Chain Anything, as a former skater and a gamer, what I wanted from the new Tony Hawk. And I'll share a Cribs and Notes version of that in a minute. But I'm curious from your perspective, Matt, from someone who just plays games. Like, what are you looking for from another Tony Hawk?
If I'm honest, absolutely nothing.
Really?
I will not play a new Tony Hawk.
Oh, you won't?
Probably. Unless it is like the second coming of the original Tony Hawk game. No, I don't have any.
So that's what you're asking for, though. You would like to see a return to the traditional style of Tony Hawk.
Right, but it won't. So
I don't know, though. Maybe.
If it's got nollies and manuals, I have no interest in it.
It will.
That's it.
Yeah, I would be shocked if they ditched that part of the game.
They probably shouldn't. Too many people like that. But that's what I liked the original one, where it was like a crazy platformer that you had to find all the lines in the environment. And once they added the manual and the nollie and all that stuff, it ruined that.
Matt, I just saw today, I think it was maybe Kotaku or some website I was curating this morning, published an article that said Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is one of the greatest 3D platformers ever.
Yeah,
and
I'd agree with that.
It could have just been, I mean, we just talked about it last week. We talked about how it was a great 3D platformer, and most people do not look at it like it's a 3D platformer, but it actually is. And then I see this thing from Kotaku today. I mean, it probably is just happenstance, but I was like, that's a little curious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the only one who thinks that. I've seen that before.
Well, we both have thought that for a long time, but I haven't heard other people really say it that often.
Pod Pound people don't want to say it because the fans get weird about it. Yeah. But it is a platform. The original, at least the first two, were 3D platforms.
Yeah, and then it started to change. Yeah.
It tested the same kind of instincts and reflexes and problem solving that, you know, like a banjo game.
Yeah, yeah.
Just faster and.
I mean, it probably was just a coincidence, but I just found it a little. I mean, we have never said that on this show.
Yeah.
And then like 5 days later, somebody else in the industry says it. It's just a crazy coincidence. But anyway, so you would like it to go back to the first two games, basically. That's what you're looking for. I'm okay keeping the gameplay the way it is. I don't want them to go in the direction of Skate, where they're trying to make it hyper realistic.
No, that would be a huge mistake.
That is my big fear, honestly, is that they're going to try to make it because all the new skateboarding games are that way. Sessions, Skater XL.
I think Tony is old enough to know that that's a mistake.
That's the funny part. I think he has a good sense for what makes a good skateboarding video game. I don't think people give him as much credit as they should for helping shape what those Tony Hawk games were. He wasn't just like a face that they put on the box art. Like, he worked with them on development. And they worked with, like, Rodney Mullen on development. Like, if you went to Neversoft and hung out during their press days, and, like, after all the other stuff was over, if you really cared about skating, you could talk to the biggest luminaries in skateboarding. It was like one of the days where I was like, I am so thankful for my job. Nobody else cared. They got their coverage, and they got on the bus, and they went away. I stayed at Neversoft all day because I got to hang out with Rodney Mullen. And you start talking to these people, and they're like, oh, yeah, they'll start going through all these stories about how they helped make the first couple Tony Hawk games. It was a lot of skaters making those decisions. So the thing is like all modern skateboard games try to be crazy realistic. And, like, there's enough of those already. I'm not even excited for Skate. That game looks awful, by the way. It's been in development for, like, 4 years. It still looks like it's broken. So I want them to keep the gameplay the same, but I do, and I've said this before, I just want a skateboarding game that actually tackles what it's like to be a skater. It's not like everybody just showing up at a skate park and going, bruh, brah, bruh, brah. That's not what being a skater is. There's a whole cultural angle to it that all ties into, like, the punk rock and hardcore scene, and, like, I wish there was more of that in skateboarding games. I feel like they've got the skating down. Either you can go the realistic route, like the Skate franchise, or you can go the more arcade, over-the-top route with Tony Hawk. But those are kind of like known quantities now. Like, the other stuff is what matters to me that they haven't done yet. Like, they try to do kind of story-based stuff with, like, Project 8 or whatever, where, like, we're trying to find the 8 greatest skaters. It's like, no, that's not interesting.
Well, it's doubly not interesting when you make skateboarders voice act.
Right. Oh, my gosh. You got that right, dude. And that's the other thing, too. Like, I don't want
like,
to see...
Go away, Bam.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Like, I don't want it... That's the other thing. Like, I'm not concerned about, like, the pro skaters having huge, like, linchpin parts of the plot.
No.
I'm okay with, like, creating your own skater and you living through that experience. So, again, as somebody who skated hardcore for 11 years and someone who still goes out and pushes and ollies around every once in a while... That's what I want from the new Tony Hawk. So I don't know about you guys. Drifter J says, what about something more like Tony Hawk's Underground? Again, that's where they started inching in the right direction and just never quite got there. So my concern, Matt, is that, like, Activision is going to be like, dude, we're going to spend $30 million on this game. That's it. Like, we'll make Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and it'll have new skate parks in it because there's so many skate parks now compared to when they first started putting these games out. So they'll have tons of new, like, places to skate, but I don't think they're going to dump a ton of money into doing the kind of stuff that I want.
No, I mean, probably not.
Yeah.
Like, I would not expect some kind of big open world thing. I would expect, you know, I mean, I would prefer something more like Tony Hawk 1 or 2, where it's just like a collection of really, really well-designed levels with the super tight gameplay that, you know, that they launched with and improved on into, and collect a bunch of VHS tapes, collect me a guy, you wouldn't even know what that is anymore.
Yeah.
But just go back to the basics and do that. But again, I don't even know if you should listen to me because I don't even know if I'd want to play that anyway. It's like I served my time.
Yeah.
In Tony Hawk. Like, I am not a skateboard person. I don't care about skateboarding. I played the first couple because they were very good video games.
Yeah. That's why we're great as a partner, or as a team. We both have different perspectives on pretty much everything, and somehow we managed to tackle almost every perspective on every game we talk about. Retro Modern Gamer says, "Do you remember Tony Hawk Ride?" Do I remember it? I have like 2 copies of it in my closet that are unopened.
How could you forget the game that killed Tony Hawk?
I have 2 copies of it in my closet, brand new, unopened, and you can't give them away.
No, when Kodak tried to Guitar Hero the Tony Hawk series.
Yep, you can't give them away.
Did you see that thing where they did? I saw it was an interview about Guitar Hero or something. Maybe I only found that because I googled it, but it was some leaks from Activision email stuff. Kodak wanted to have a new Guitar Hero out every month. At one point.
And just put out new music with every release.
New disc every month.
He probably figured, like, we could just keep licensing music and spending the money. But then Guitar Hero Live launch, which kind of was that concept.
Yeah, but I mean, Rock Band did it entirely better. Mm-hmm. Rock Band still did DLC until January this year.
Like, it's insane. It really is insane.
Like that craze.
And now there are new guitars.
That craze ended in 2009.
I know. Yeah.
And like they kept going for another 15 years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for the first 7 years of SIFTD, they were putting out a trailer every week for the new songs, and finally they just ended like a year ago. It's really amazing. And that
adapter still goes for like $400.
Yeah, and now there are new controllers.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about getting one of those.
I've thought about it too.
It keeps popping my head.
Just to have it.
Yeah, it keeps popping my head like I should set up Rock Band again. But like when I moved, I got rid of all the guitars except the full-size Stratocaster.
The real expensive
the real
ones.
The real guitar.
I have the orange one.
Which is like, this is too heavy to play with.
It's a real guitar.
It's a real guitar, yeah.
Yeah, just without strings.
And I got the Ion drums in the garage. God knows if those still work.
They probably do.
They're probably full of spiders.
Yeah. Yeah, I do miss Rock Band parties.
Yeah,
they were fun, man. They were a good time. Having some beers and playing Rock Band was always a good time.
Watching a game, having a bud.
Yeah, seriously. So anyway, that's the latest on Tony Hawk. We don't have any idea on the release date. Platform's pretty obvious guess there is PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch 2 would be my guess. But yeah, they're working on it. They're already doing mocap, which means they're pretty far into development. So maybe late next year, but more likely probably early, mid 2026, I would guess, is when we'll see it. But if you're a fan of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater franchise, you should be excited because another one's on the way. Next up, you may not have realized it, but Tokyo Game Show was this week. And I can understand why you may not have known that it was happening because there is hardly any news. Like, for the last 5 years, I don't think we've given Tokyo Game Show its own topic. I think it's been in like the headlines part of the show.
You just want to talk about Death Stranding forever.
Yeah.
What to fucking do.
And again, there was not enough stuff at TGS this year to give it its own topic. We're going to talk about it here in headlines instead. Very quickly, we're going to go through. There's only a handful of things that are even worth mentioning.
At least that somebody acknowledged the Suikoden remasters are still on track.
Well, the crazy thing about it is you had both Xbox and PlayStation at Tokyo Game Show this year. So I was like, man, this might actually be a good year for TGS. As it turns out, it was not. We got another trailer for Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater 3, whatever the hell you want to call it. The title's like the length of a book at this point. And basically the headlines from this trailer is that it shows what a lot of the big players from the story look like in this new updated version. And I will say, wow, like the new character models in this are pretty damn impressive, man. Like, for just Konami's scrubby team working on this stuff, I was pretty impressed with it. Now, all reports indicate that otherwise they have done nothing to the game. It otherwise pretty much plays exactly the same as the original. The developers working on it said they're terrified of changing something that Hideo Kojima created. And so it is basically being left alone other than the improved visuals. And wow, man. Like, the visuals, huge step up from PlayStation 2.
I mean, technically, I do think removing a lot of the color filters the original had, is a mistake because it changes the tone considerably. Like, this
game is so drab.
Like, this scene makes this scene look much colder. And, like, in the original, it's got that kind of almost piss yellow filter over it. And like I think that was, I mean, some of that's covering up the draw distance on the PlayStation 2, but some of that's intentional. Like it's supposed to have that color grading, and that kind of color grading is not popular right now. So I feel like you're sort of like I think that's a change that's way more impactful than like making the character look different. And I think in the end, it's going to lose something because they're afraid to make it look as wacky. And you know that I don't like Metal Gear Solid 3. Like, I've never gotten more than an hour or two into Snake Eater. I think it's basically trash.
I finished it, but I had to really drag my ass
I really
through it.
strongly dislike this game. But even I can look at this as basically as a filmmaker and look at this and be like, you are fundamentally changing the tone and approach and look to the artistic, like theory of this game. And I understand that maybe you don't want to do all this work on the visuals and slap this weird color filter over it. But I think the color filter is as much a choice Kojima made as the rest of it.
Yeah, it was a decision for sure.
The fogging is a technical limitation on the PS. The color he chose is not.
No, you're right.
And I think missing that is a problem. And not for me. I mean, I really don't give a shit. But I feel like the fans are not going to look at this and recognize what they love in the sense that like you're flattening out the visuals in a weird way. I mean,
it is a very drab looking game.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And the original, for better or worse, even the HD versions pop. You look at them and that could be nothing else. And
Kaimil 1983.
And until I recognize like some of Shinkura's design, I can't remember the name of the mecha designer. Shinkura.
I don't remember.
The guy who's done all the mech stuff.
Yeah, for all his games.
Or Solid Snake or somebody, a character I know. If you just show me this game, otherwise I might not know this is Metal Gear. And if you show me one of the original Metal Gears, I know anything. You should show me a fucking box, and I know it was Metal Gear. I know it was that. I mean, I'm not a Kojima fan by any standard, but
Andy T. Monahan brings up a good point.
The man has a style, and the man has a signature, and you're kind of sucking it out of the game.
Yoji Shinkawa,
that's it.
Andy T. Monahan says it was meant to mimic a '60s movie, which is why the filter was done that
100%,
way. Yeah,
100%.
And then Kaimil 1983 reminds us that the voice acting in this game is something that hasn't aged well.
That's true.
And it is true. Bad. Like
all the voice acting in Metal Gear games is pretty.
It's almost embarrassingly bad.
It's of a time, and it's very heightened, and it's what Kojima wanted, and it got worse as time went on, both in the sense of like Kojima having more and more control over the voice direction and not really knowing how some of that's supposed to sound, and I think David Hayter gets worse as Snake as the series goes on. I think his best performance is the first Metal Gear Solid, and it's all downhill from there.
It feels like he's almost a caricature of himself after that.
Yeah.
Which is really weird.
Especially in 4.
Yeah.
And I know he's trying
we
to...
had the geriatric Snake, yeah.
But it's like he already kind of sounded old. Like that was the kind of the funny part about him.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Deus Retro Modern Gamer reminds us that Deus Ex Human Revolution had that crazy gold theme. It was like the first time I went to see that game with the developers, that they spent like 20 minutes of the presentation talking about the gold and how the game had gold everywhere, and it was like the theme of the game. And I was like, and then you started playing it, you're like, yeah,
it is.
It's like, you people are crazy. Like, why would you do this? Like, I still don't understand why they decided to do that. Like, I don't
know. It's a distinct look.
It is.
Like I remember it because of that. So I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah. Erebus, they blocked you because you used the word turd. I'm going to allow you. Put your comment in there. Andy T. Monahan says Old Snake damaged his vocal cords. I don't know if that's true, but
I'm sure a few days of doing that voice hurts one way or the other.
But honestly, Matt, that was kind of the biggest story from Tokyo Game Show. We're going to talk about Death Stranding 2 in another context later on. But, I mean, that was probably the biggest thing there, but this was a close second. Yeah, the Snake Eater remake. And then Blizzard announced, because Xbox was there, Xbox actually made announcements at Tokyo Game Show this year. It announced that StarCraft and StarCraft 2 are coming to Game Pass, which we all probably assumed anyway. Like, I'm just assuming every Blizzard game is going to be on Game Pass. I think maybe the wild card there is World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I would think that's not.
But all the other Blizzard stuff, I just assume it's coming. So this wasn't a big announcement to me. Yeah. But in Asia, where StarCraft is much bigger, even bigger than it is here, it makes sense to make that announcement.
Sort of. Well, so I was like, who the fuck doesn't have StarCraft?
I know.
At this point.
It's been given away countless times, and yeah.
Even StarCraft 2 is, what? That's 12 some years old, 13 years old.
But this is what I'm saying. Like, this is where TGS is at this point. These are the type of announcements that we're getting. The next thing that we got that is worth mentioning is a story trailer for a game called Slitterhead. This is the next game from a bunch of former Konami developers who worked on Silent Hill. This is their first game. It's called Boca Studio, I think is what they're called. And this is a lot like the Nintendo game Geist, where you can just basically possess almost anything in the game. I think they're organic objects only in this, though, where in Geist you could possess literally anything, like a deck of cards sitting on the table.
All the dog food.
Yeah. Here, though, I think it's only like living things. But yeah, basically you can just run around and possess anything in this game. The art and some of the like the first debut trailer for this, where the faces were like almost like turning inside out, and they had this huge mouth. I'm excited for this game. It may end up being horrible, but I'm excited for it for whatever reason.
Yeah, show me gameplay.
Yeah, well, there is a gameplay
There's
trailer.
some, but I'm just like, okay, that's done.
How's it going to flow together and be a satisfying whole? I hear you.
My guess is it's going to be like Ghostwire Tokyo. It's going to be just like, oh, this is okay.
Okay, yeah.
It basically really interesting art design and concept stuff wasted on a really
average execution. Yeah, probably. But for whatever reason, this game has definitely caught my eye, and I am a big horror fan. I love horror movies. I love horror games. And I like Silent Hill. So a lot of the people that came from that team are working on this. I'm hoping it has that sort of creepy aesthetic that Silent Hill has instead of just overt horror like some other games try to attempt. But again, this is Slitterhead. Oh, I should have written down the platforms, but I think it's just PS5, Xbox Series, and PC.
That's what I would think.
I don't think it's coming to Switch, unfortunately. But yeah, there you go.
Maybe Switch 2.
Yeah, that's true, actually. So that's Slitterhead. Next up, probably the coolest thing at Tokyo Game Show, Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake. The look of this game is amazing. Like, I think this looks better than, like, Octopath Traveler and a lot of the other kind of experimental 2D art styles that Square Enix has been working with over the last half decade or so.
Well, it's got a lot less brown.
Yeah, definitely a lot more colorful. And it is a classic.
As it cuts to the sand world in the dungeon. Thanks.
Honestly, Matt, I don't know if I've ever played Dragon Quest III. I think that may be a blind spot in my library that I haven't played.
NES?
Yeah, I don't think I played it.
That was the first one I played.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it good?
I remember.
Do you remember anything about
pretty
it?
Good. It was. I played it with my girlfriend.
Oh yeah.
She was the one who had it, and so she'd never really gotten into it because she didn't really understand it. So
you should have locked that down, Kyle.
I'm like, oh, that's another story. Yeah. I have not had a problem finding women who play video games.
Yeah.
But no, it was. I liked it at the time. I didn't think it was as good as like Phantasy Star or things like that. But it was it was a very different thing. And this is interesting because they did take an extra year to like rework some stuff that wasn't working in this new version.
Yeah.
And they changed something. And that was one of their things was like, we have made more changes than we planned on making, and we hope you all are not going to freak out about it. Kind of thing. And it doesn't seem like they did.
Square Enix's track record with this type of stuff is mixed.
Yeah, but it's so like in the original version, this is all first person. Like it's just like a little window with
it's almost like a dungeon crawler. Yeah.
And you can't even see the other characters. So it seems like part of what was changed. That's more like it. Yeah. And there were people that were confused because that original trailer like kind of did the rotate around and like people thought it was going to be you bring able to see the characters when you're fighting. You can't. That's not how the classic Dragon Quest did it. I don't know. It is one of the better ones, as I would consider. I think 3 is one of the better regarded Dragon Quests overall. Giving it this treatment. I mean, I wish you'd give Final Fantasy VI this treatment. Yeah. Well, it is it is missing in my library of games I've played. So I'm going to give this a go when it comes out. I'm excited about it. I'm very interested. It's also the original is pretty hard, as I recall. Oh, really? I haven't played it in 30 some years. Yeah. But, I mean, they could nerf that as well. Sure. I mean, there's more options you could have now. Yeah. Or they could just give you difficulty options. The characters look good. I don't have any complaints about it. I mean, this is not a sacred cow to me, so I don't know if there's anything happening here that like to. I mean, it's a drastic change. I wish
more remakes, remasters were handled like this, where they actually take some license. It's like we're always going to have the old version of the game.
Like I said, I'd love to see them do this with Final Fantasy VI. I would love to see Sega do something like this with the Phantasy Stars.
Agreed. Yeah.
Like leaving the Phantasy Stars to languish in
it's a huge mistake.
The past is wrong.
Sega has let a lot of IP die on the vine.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Also, like, it's time. I know the source code is lost and blah 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 blah. It's time to remake Panzer Dragoon Saga.
Give me a break. What are you doing?
Like,
there's a reason it's like one of the most valuable games in the world.
It's like, we know people are paying $1,500 for the Saturn version of this thing. I promise you they'll pay. I mean, I would pay more than retail for that.
Oh, I would too. Yeah, it's like one of my dream games that I just assume I'll never get.
I have it. I have it. I got it for $50 at Toys R Us when it came out.
Yeah.
But I played it. Tried to play it on an emulator like last year or 2 years ago. I mean, I still like it. Like I remember, but like, I can't even tell what anything's supposed to be. Like the Saturn 3D graphics are horrible.
I played it back in 2001. I was at GameSpot. Somebody loaned me their Saturn and loaned me the game, and I played it. And I haven't played it since. And I don't own it. So when I say like I've been hoping for it, I've been hoping for like a remake, a remaster, and a way to play it in modern times without having to own a Saturn and a $1,500 freaking video game. So it's just money sitting on the table. I don't know what Sega's doing. Instead, we're getting these goofy, like, crazy taxi games. Like,
I think they're a lot easier to make than.
It feels like they're reviving the wrong IP at Sega.
I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, hopefully all those other, they showed like the Golden Axe and the Shinobi and all these things that are in the pipeline.
Jet Set Radio.
Hopefully some of those turn out well.
We'll see.
But I mean, they've done like Panzer Dragoon on Switch, and,
like on rails shooters.
Yeah. Well, the originals were all that. But the fourth one is the third one rather was
an RPG.
The RPG, and it had a pretty unique battle system, and the story was pretty innovative for the time because it had some fourth wall breaks, which wasn't expected in 1997.
Yeah, it didn't happen very often then.
And I'd love to see them bring it up to snuff again. And it's got one of the interesting things about that series was always that they had a made up language. And they did stop.
And not Banjo-Kazooie gibberish.
No, it's an actual like fake language that they designed and everything. And they speak it in the cutscenes of the on rails games, and then they speak it in the first. The prologue of Saga is all in that, and then it switches to Japanese. Yeah. But it's very, very well done.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, we can dream. But that's Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake. Just a couple more things from TGS. And again, this is the most interesting stuff from Tokyo Game Show 2024. 2 mana RPGs are coming to Xbox. Legend of Mana and Trials of Mana. Obviously, they just released a mana game not all that long ago, which wasn't great. Is this a big deal? I don't really miss these RPGs. Do you?
No, I mean, I didn't. Legend of Mana is okay. I don't think I've played the other one.
Yeah.
I don't know if that ever came
Trials
here.
of Mana is... I don't think it ever came out here. Yeah. And it's not that old either. It's like 10 years old, maybe.
The notable thing about these games, the Super Nintendo Mana games, were you could play them co-op.
Yeah.
Which was
at the time a big
unusual.
Deal. Yeah.
I don't know. I think this series is much bigger in Japan.
Yeah, I like the art in these games.
Yeah, art's nice. I mean, I like the art even when they got to the stuff on the PS1. That they kept that going pretty well. Same with like the Saga games. Although the Saga games I find so obtuse and difficult.
I agree.
I never really bothered with them.
I like that the art in these games didn't pull punches. They weren't trying to make everything look kind of cute. They're like, oh, this monster's going to be scary. And he's just going to be scary. He's not going to be chibi scary. He's just going to be scary. And then this is Trials of Mana here, which obviously has a much more modern art style, polygonal graphics, etc., etc. Neither one of these games are like must-play, must-own games, but when you're Xbox and you're trying to gin up some interest at Tokyo Game Show, this is what you do, I guess. So, again, both The Legend of Mana and Trials of Mana are coming to Xbox. And then just a couple smaller things. Overwatch 2 has a thing going with My Hero Academia. This trailer is 15 seconds long, so they didn't even dedicate all that much to it. You're just basically getting costumes from it. Again, I think this is just an olive branch being extended to the Japanese market as far as I'm concerned. That's the way a lot of this stuff feels for me. It's like, hey, we don't really have a lot going on in Japan. What can we do to get people in Japan to care about our products? Let's do a crossover with anime or manga. And that's pretty much what happens. And then the final thing, they announced a couple new Atelier RPGs, and that's it. That's Tokyo Game Show 2024, Matt. Mm-hmm. And now you can see why most outlets no longer go there to cover the show. The last year we went there in 2012, this is pretty much what the highlights were. Yeah. Like 5 or 6 kind of big things, but not really.
I mean, we used to do 3 shows from the Tokyo Game Show, and by 2012, I think we were literally sending Ben Winter and Morgan over for the weekend.
One segment.
And doing a segment.
Yep.
That was it.
And even like some of the bigger guys like Kotaku, I saw PC Gamer. Basically what they did is they just paid somebody who's already living in Japan.
Yeah.
Got them the credential. They went in. They ran through the show for a couple of days, wrote a couple synopsis articles.
That's what the web team was doing. And Sam, I mean, we used to bring our camera people and our tech, our crew with us for that. So because we wanted people, very quick. After 2007, it was just like send a producer, send one host, hire a local crew, call it a day.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yep. But here's the other thing, though. It actually set records for attendance. It had like 280,000 people. And actually, that was one of the typos I had in the news crawl at the bottom, was the year for Tokyo Game Show. I said Tokyo Game Show 2025 sets records or whatever.
I'm sure it will.
It did. Well, it will, yeah. And 2024 did. It's the most people ever at Tokyo Game Show. So the audience, the people in Japan, are still going to TGS. It's just the publishers aren't showing up there with newsworthy content anymore, which is why you don't get a lot of coverage and why you may not even know it was happening unless you are using SIFTD.net every day, which you should be doing. Next up in headlines, just a couple more. Jason Schreier is on a book tour right now, Matt. He's selling a new book. And if you remember, on his last book tour, he actually did a podcast with me. I think we were doing 3-night weekend at that point. He came on and did a podcast with me. And now he's selling another book, which is all about Blizzard, behind-the-scenes stuff that's happened at Blizzard over the last 10 or 15 years or whatever.
I think that's where I got the thing about Kodak wanting guitar.
Probably, because what he's doing is he's dropping little nuggets. So every podcast he appears on or every interview he does, he has seemed to keep like one little nugget story that he tells in that podcast, and he's smart. That becomes a news story, and people are like, "Oh, that's in his book." Like he's working it, and he's doing a really good job of working it. And one of the things that he dropped this week on his book tour is that the next Horizon is not going to be a sequel to Horizon Forbidden West. It is going to be Horizon Online, which is like an MMO set in the Horizon universe, or is it? We don't really know yet. That's what everyone's educated guess is right now, is that it's just going to be, an MMO set in that universe. But nobody really knows for sure. They just know that it's Horizon Online. And he also shared that like the next single-player Horizon game is a long ways away because they're working on it. So how do you feel about that, Matt? Do you think this is a smart move to have Guerrilla working on an MMO?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like I knew about this.
We knew that there was an online version of Horizon coming.
I mean, it's their biggest new IP in the last 10 years. So yeah, you lean into it. You make this Lego one. You make this online way. If you're going to do this game as a service nonsense, I guess this is certainly one of the IPs you're going to throw at the wall and see if it sticks. I feel like Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West are enough single-player open-world action RPG for anybody for a while.
Yeah, I mean, both of them are like 60 hours long.
I'm not 100% sure where you go after this. Like,
I agree.
I mean,
story-wise.
I do understand where you go into space. You go to another planet, basically, in the next one. And maybe they need a little more time
to figure out what they're going to do.
Because if they follow their plan, you're gonna have Earth, and you're gonna have this other space. You're gonna have a bunch of different. It's gonna be gigantic. I mean, the first one's huge and sprawling. The second one was even bigger. And like if they feel they need to up that, then sure, I can see it needing 10 more years.
Yeah.
I'm good. I mean, I feel like those are 2 really solid games. I like them a lot. I'm happy with them. I don't really feel the need to play another 100-hour Horizon game anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm not ready to play another one, honestly. I'm good for a little while still.
And I feel like, you know what? Go ahead and put the next one on PS6. Let the new hardware take you where you need to go in the next one. Because it feels like Forbidden West already kind of topped some things out on this system.
Yeah, so sadly, I don't get to finish games as much as I would like to these days. But I finished this one.
Yeah, I finished.
I played it all the way to the end.
I did not finish the DLC. I didn't get all the way through that.
I didn't make it all the way through that. But I finished the campaign of this game, and it was like 60 hours or something like that. So it definitely got me across the finish line.
And when the PC version drops enough on the Steam sale, I'm probably gonna pick it up and do it again.
Yeah,
like they're very. I'm gonna pay.
I would like to see this game on PC.
I'm gonna pay $10 for the upgrade on Zero Dawn too. Like especially because they fixed the faces.
Yeah,
that's what really needed to happen. Like, bringing the facial animation up to par with Forbidden West. That was the biggest flaw in the first game.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
I wish they'd done that when they originally put the PC version out, but it seemed like they had enough to worry about for that at the time.
Yeah.
So no, I'm a big fan of this. I don't need another one immediately. I don't really care what Horizon Online is. The hook of Horizon for me is very much Aloy and her adventures and what she can do in the world and the connection to Elizabeth and the past and how all this happened in kind of a weird tragic connection to her. The world is interesting, but I don't feel the need to be some like random mook running around in it, like blowing up mecha dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the interesting part. I mean, it is fun, but it's not the interesting part to me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I've certainly never played this game and halfway through fighting a thunder job and like, you know what would make this better? Other people.
Yeah.
No.
Well, someone in our chat said, where did it go? Nightwing 3060 says, hunting robot dinosaurs with friends sounds fun.
Yeah, so does hunting actual dinosaurs with friends, but I don't like Monster Hunter either.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. But I do like the combat and the way that this game works, where, you just saw a perfect demo of how you can dismantle.
Right. But I do feel like you're going to need to really greatly expand the combat for an online. You're going to need different classes. You're going to need a melee to be an actual combat system and not like two combos and an emergency get out of jail free game.
You're going to need cooldowns.
You're going to need a lot. You're going to need to expand that a lot. And hey, maybe that makes Horizon 3 better.
You would hope so.
So why not? Maybe you prototype a lot of the combat in Horizon 3 with what you do in this, and that could help that game too. So
it's true. Yeah.
Seems. I mean, if you're really fishing for online successes using Horizon, I can think of worse ideas.
I think they're using it for everything at this point. It's become sort of its flagship IP, which is kind of crazy.
It's sold ridiculous. I mean, I never would have guessed it sold as much as
Me either. I was surprised when I saw the figures, for sure. But anyway, it is going to be a while till we get another single player. So if you haven't played Forbidden West,
you got time.
Yeah, and you should. It's a great game. Like, I literally played it for 60 hours and didn't regret a single minute of it. So, so we'll see I have a feeling that maybe it won't be like an MMORPG.
No,
and then maybe it's more something like Phantasy Star Online, where you're grouping.
I'm gonna guess it's more of a Monster Hunter thing.
Yeah,
like an online focused co-op, like run out around in the world and do probably Aloy shows up a couple times and your work you pick your tribe or your nation or whatever, and that determines your skills. Like the Nora do this, and the fire, whatever they're called, the Fire Nation.
Yeah, I don't remember what their name is.
They all do this, and
they have their own skills and abilities based on the tribe and blah blah blah. Yeah, I think that makes more sense. I don't think really just turning this into an MMORPG makes all that much sense at all.
No, I could see it being. I mean, I think probably what they're trying to do is like, what if you made Ark Survival Evolved, except it didn't suck?
Yeah, you didn't have to like build your base. At least I hope not.
I mean, I bet you will build a...
Probably.
I bet there will be a lot of survival aspects.
You may be right. Yeah, I mean, because it's like the big hotness now, and that's what everybody needs to jump on it. So there you go. That's the latest on the Horizon franchise. Yeah.
You know what happened? You know what went up? There's a Kickstarter for a board game of Valheim.
They make stuff for anything now.
Anything out of anything.
It's really crazy. Stuff that you would think no one even knows that exists.
No. And that came on the heels of... this week is Essen, the biggest board game convention in the world.
Oh, really? Where does that take place at?
Germany.
Oh, in Germany. Interesting.
In Essen,
you would think it would happen in the U.S., but no.
No, of course. No. Europe is the center of board gaming.
I didn't know that.
Board games as we know them in terms of kind of what the breakout stuff, Ticket to Ride, like all that stuff, that comes out of a tradition in Germany of board gaming that evolved post-war. Because it was part of this movement to sort of like bond the family and create kind of like a community sort of thing. Basically, it was like, let's make sure Nazis don't happen
again. Yeah.
So we're gonna try to do. And there was a big emphasis on the games not being warlike and not being violent. So that's how you came up with these Euro things, which are all placing workers and building economies and selling beer and trading sheep and all that. And that's where all that came out of was that. And so like the heart of like kind of the modern era of board games in that regard, the Euro games, as they say, is Germany and France.
I guarantee you will learn something watching GameFace every single week.
I
do.
Now that is contrasted.
I learned something being on this show every week.
That is contrasted with like those games don't like dice or randomness. They like perfect information. It's called. Americans like rolling dice.
Yeah.
So you get games where you're just rolling dice, and then you roll 40 dice, and then like if they roll sixes, those explode, and you get to roll them again and add the results of that. And those are called, I'm not kidding, Ameritrash games. So the war in board gaming isn't console warring between PlayStation and Xbox. It's between Ameritrash and Euro.
Interesting. All right. So anyway, there you go. That's the latest on the Horizon franchise. Once again, thanks to Jason Schreier for that information. We always like to credit people who are breaking stories out in the industry. And then our final headline for this week is more of a public service announcement, because you may not have known this, but GreedFall 2 launched.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's like the entire industry has completely ignored the game. And look, it is in early access on PC, and a couple initial reports have said that it is an early access game.
Yeah, apparently it's not very good.
Yeah, and people are kind of like disappointed,
because a lot of the Steam reviews, grain of salt and all, but a lot of the Steam reviews are just like, change the combat system back to what it was, and like obviously that can't happen. You're not gonna read it because they basically went with sort of like a gimped version of Baldur's Gate's combat. It's like turn-based, tactical stuff instead of the more real-time Dragon Age Inquisition style stuff of the first one.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, like, I knew this was coming and I didn't bother because that I do not believe they are going to, I like Spiders. I think Spiders does good stuff. I think they should have kept devolving in the direction they were going. And I thought that Steel Rising was that. I thought that was like, okay, you're doing like a real-time combat, Souls-like style combat system. I thought that was almost like, prototype practice for what they were going to do in GreedFall 2. And instead they just went with this turn-based, almost XCOM looking thing. And I'm just like, that's not what I want.
Yeah, apparently nobody wants it. There's no reviews for it. There's no coverage of it. So I'm just putting it out there for you who really like GreedFall, like we did, actually.
Yeah,
we're big fans of the first GreedFall. If you liked it too, just letting you know the sequel is out there. No one's covering it, but it has been kind of launched all stealthily. So if you're interested in it, there you go. There's a look at one of his trailers, and it's available on Steam Early Access right now. And that's it for our headlines. I told you it's going to be shorter today because we got a bunch of other stuff going on. We're about to review The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. You definitely want to stick around for this review. I'm just telling you right now. You definitely want to check it out. But until then, here's a word from our sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Cray Mass, and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. LS Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted. That's right, sifters. Go to creamls.com/sifted. Make sure you use that URL if you can, because that's how they track that y'all are going from here to go buy yourself some LS Cream, and that would be very smart. To buy yourself a bottle or two of LS Cream. If you go to creamls.com/sifted, there's a store locator there where you can find it locally, hopefully. We've talked a lot on the show about how they're working on distribution, getting it to some places that it's not there yet. And if you live in one of those places where you can't find it locally, you can also figure out how to buy it online at creamls.com/sifted. It's the easiest way to find out how to get LS Cream, and I can tell you right now that once you get it, you won't regret it. So go to creamls.com/sifted and get yourself a bottle or 5. And with that, it is time for our review of The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. Not the next mainline Zelda, but Matt, I would say this, having discussions with you leading up to this, talking about the game, I do feel like it's closer to a mainline Zelda game than I thought it was going to be before I played it.
I don't really think so. I think if Nintendo still had its own old platform strategy, this would have been on the DS. This would have been the handheld. as opposed to like the mainline console ones.
Mm-hmm.
This is an Oracle of Seasons, basically.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's some Oracle references in this.
I missed that.
There are a couple of a couple references to the Oracle games. This is basically, other than the bed stacking mechanics, there is almost nothing new in this game. It is all a giant nostalgia trip of various things that have been in other Zelda games, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like, yeah, you'll recognize a bunch of stuff in this. It's interesting. Also, screw you for making me play the end of the game I actually want to play at the beginning of this.
So the big thing about this game...
Although I did say this is what this was going to be.
Yeah.
I did say originally when they first put the trail up, you were probably going to play as Link at the beginning and go to rescue, and then he falls in the thing and you switch to Zelda. And sure enough, that is what happens.
Yeah, so the big thing about this game is that you play as Princess Zelda and not Link. They do tease you here at the beginning of the game and let you play as Link for about, 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
Well, even less. It depends how long it takes you to beat Ganon.
Right.
But,
and then...
Or as they call him repeatedly, the blue guy.
Yeah.
But,
and basically what happens is Link is trying to rescue Zelda. That's what he's on a mission to do. And he defeats Ganon, but Ganon sucks him into a rift. As he's going down into the rift, he shoots an arrow that breaks, basically, the jewel that Princess Zelda is being held in. He gets sucked into the rift. Zelda breaks out of the jewel and sets off, at least she thinks at first.
And steals his coat.
Yeah, his cloak. At first, she thinks that she's just setting off to go rescue Link. But she gets back to Hyrule Kingdom, and she finds out that the rifts have actually opened up all over the place. And as she's getting briefed on what's been going on, she's been missing, by the way, and Link was trying to rescue her. So she gets back to Hyrule Kingdom. Everybody's like, oh, it's Princess Zelda. So glad that you're here. She goes and meets with the king. While she's talking to the king about all this stuff, a rift opens up on his throne and literally sucks the king and his two right and left-hand people into the rift. They come back out and they are transformed, and all of a sudden, they're trying to kill Zelda. They want to basically execute Zelda for treason or whatever else. And she takes off and is like, I got to figure all this stuff out. And that's how the adventure begins, basically. So she's on a quest to rescue Link and also rescue basically her father, or the doppelganger, whatever the hell he's been turned into, by the rifts. And so basically she sets out on a journey to close all the rifts in the kingdom. That's really the goal of the game.
And presumably Link will come along.
Right. It's just part and parcel.
You close enough rifts, one of them is going to have Link in it, and that'll solve that problem too.
Right, yeah. It's just part and parcel of accomplishing the other missions. Now, this game is... So, you guys, maybe we should preface this by letting people know, in case they aren't already aware, that Matt and I, we're not the world's biggest Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom fans. We...
To the point that this logo annoys me.
I cut the B-roll before it comes up.
The logo comes up and it's the flat white no border Breath of the Wild style logo, and I'm like, that should have been a classic Zelda logo.
Yeah,
because that's much more what they're doing here.
Yeah, and I guess we should just maybe continue talking about the story and finish our thoughts on the story. And I am not a fan of the story. The setup is okay.
I mean, as with so many Zelda games, it's good enough to keep things moving forward, and that's about it.
Until it wasn't, Matt. I got to a certain point where, and we'll talk about the actual gameplay here in a minute, there's tedium involved with the gameplay in this game. And eventually, the story was not enough to propel me past the tedium of playing the game. And because, I would argue, mostly because of the story, I have got to the point where I am really not interested in playing the game any further.
That's interesting.
And I am...
Because I'm not interested in playing the game any further because I think it's incredibly tedious.
Well, I mean, that's part of it, too, obviously.
Yeah.
Sometimes the story can help you get through.
I cannot imagine a Zelda story that would get me past this.
Maybe not.
It's just never... The story in a Zelda game has just never been that good.
You're right. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, but Zelda games do typically have moments, like even Ocarina of Time, there's the moment where you come back to the village and the village is burning down. Like, that got me pissed off. And I was like, oh, you're burning down my village? Well, we got problems now. Like, there's nothing like that in this. Like, one of the big plot lines for the Zoras is you have two people who can't get along, and it's your goal to make them get along again.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in this that feels like they're dumbing it down for, like, there's... In another era, I would have been like, oh, did you make this for girls, quote unquote? You know, it's got that thing. It's like, oh, you don't want huge conflict in a game for girls. You just want it to be about social relate. It's like, And like, do I think they're doing that consciously? Not really, maybe, but like, it feels like my first Zelda in terms of presentation sometimes.
It definitely feels like it was made for a younger audience than the last couple Zeldas, for sure. Like, I felt at times like the game was made for like 5-6-year-old kids.
Yeah.
And usually this franchise is really good at not doing that.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, certainly Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom don't feel like that.
Yeah, you don't feel like that at all. I mean, Pachter spent 160 hours playing Tears of the Kingdom.
Even Link's Awakening from the same team.
You're right.
Feel like that.
It didn't feel like that either. And this one definitely does.
Like there is an element of this that kind of feels. I kept thinking of that Princess Peach DS game. Mm-hmm. It has that. Like
wink, wink.
Why
nod, nod.
Why aren't you just making this the way you normally make it? And it feels like you're changing it somehow because you don't think the audience you're targeting is going to be able to like handle it or like it that way or whatever. And I don't think that's true.
I agree with that. I also feel like the game itself, gameplay.
I think tons of women and girls play Zelda already. You don't need to change it just because Zelda's the main character, but it feels very different.
I also feel like the bulk of your time playing this game, it's not dumbed down. It's not a simple game to play at all. Like, in fact, that's one of my big criticisms of playing this, is it becomes annoying after a while and tedious to play this game.
Well, I'll tell you, like, right there, you cut it out there, but, like, when I got caught the first time doing that stealth sequence, they throw you back in the jail cell at the beginning, and I almost turned the game off. Like, I'm like, are we doing the Star Wars Outlaws insta-fail respawn? I'm going to fucking kill you. Like, I'm not doing that. And then, like, the second time you get caught, it does not. It just resets you to the beginning of that section.
Yeah.
But if it reset me to the jail cell a second time, I was going to stop playing the game. And that was going to be the end of it.
Well, that's a shame, because I do think that there is some entertainment to glean from this game. And look, I've played it for almost 20 hours at this point. Obviously, if I had paid $60 for this game, I probably got my entertainment value out of it already. However, as a big fan of Zelda, that's not good enough for me. I like to play Zelda games to the end. Even Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I played for a lot more hours than this before I started to get tired.
Well, because there's tedium in especially Tears of the Kingdom, but there's moments in Tears of the Kingdom where you can just play Zelda.
Right.
And in this, that doesn't exist.
Not so much.
I mean, I guess you could transform into swordsman mode, which like basically lets you become Link briefly. But
which is them hedging their bets.
Yeah, which lasts about... Well, it basically is like when they introduced that to you like right before the first boss fight, and it's like, oh, you couldn't figure out a way to do actual boss fights
without letting me hack with a sword.
Without doing a Link thing.
They do hedge the bet, for sure.
And and you can only be that mode for very brief amounts of time. So it's not... For a
you
second,
level it up eventually.
But for a second, I'm like, oh, could I just be Link the whole time? No, you're going to run out of Link juice pretty fast doing that.
Well, if you haven't figured it out yet, the big change for this mechanics-wise is these things called echoes. Zelda gets that golden rod that she has in her hands, and basically what it lets her do is just summon crap. She can summon furniture, inanimate objects. She can summon creatures and enemies that will fight alongside her. And that's the crux of the game. Basically, this game is a Zelda game. If instead of like 8 or 9 items or power-ups, there's like 300. And if you remember, like most Zelda games that you play, you get to a part and maybe you don't figure out what to do right away. And what do? You start going through all of Link's abilities until you find the one that works, and then you move on. This game works the same way. The problem is, instead of there being 8 or 9 things to check and go through, there's like 200 of them. Like, it starts to get really ridiculous because it does utilize the same cross menu bar as the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom games, and I think they did that on purpose, so people are like, oh, it's still Zelda. It has that same interface that I used for 50 hours when I played Breath of the Wild or whatever. It gets ridiculous in this. Like, you can sort the bar by like 4 or 5 different things, is that right? You can sort by most used, most recently got.
Least moves, most recently acquired, like longest equipment. You can reverse them.
Yeah, and still, you are going to cycle through that list because there's like a couple hundred echoes, and trying to find the right one, it's exciting.
It's fascinating to me that a company as good at figuring UI out as Nintendo did not really figure this out.
Yeah,
I ended up using, if you go to the main menu, like you hit the whatever they call the start button now.
Yeah.
If you use that, the Echoes menu is a big grid, and I do find that a little easier to navigate once you have like 100 plus of these things.
Yeah.
And you're looking for something that's not something you're using regularly, because that's usually right up at the front if you're using the most used. To the point that sometimes I'll just spam something over and over again, so it ends up at the top of my list.
Right.
I know
No, you're right.
it.
But you do find
I find that easier, but it's just weird that there's not a better, even if it's just like, I don't know, more like a slot machine situation where like each slot machine is like different types of items or something, enemies versus furniture versus like, natural things. If I need a boulder and then I need a table and then I need a dark nut, like whatever, it feels like you could space that out better somehow. I don't know. And I keep forgetting which buttons do what.
Me too.
On this.
Because it's insane.
Yeah.
There's so many button combinations to remember, and holding it's like, why can I only hit right on the D-pad to bring up the echoes? Why can't I hit left on the D-pad to bring up the echoes?
Well, you can also hit right,
L1.
The L1.
But does that actually let you select them?
Yeah.
It does?
Yeah, that's what I use now, because I find it way easier than holding right on the D-pad.
Yeah. There's so many times where I'm in the middle of a fight, and like an enemy would be like sucking me in, or I'm about to get hit, and you like trying to get your thumb on that freaking D-pad or one of the buttons, and like, to be fair, once you do bring up the echoes, it does pause the game.
Yeah, it is frozen.
So there's like, but it becomes almost an annoying mechanic in the game, is like getting to the right echo before you get attacked by an enemy, and it feels clumsy a lot of the time. The other thing I would say, too, about the Echoes is well, you kind of mentioned it, actually, is that, like, even Nintendo knows that it's clunky and weird to use, because it hedges its bets by giving you the ability on a timer, a very short timer, to just become Link, basically, as Zelda, where you can use your sword, eventually you get a bow, but again, it's on a timer, and at first, that timer is only, like, 5 seconds, maybe?
No, it's longer.
Is it longer than that?
It's like 15 or
Oh, really?
something.
It didn't seem that long. But eventually you do get the ability to extend that, so it's a little bit longer. But it just shows you, like, that Nintendo was like, you know what, we can't rely on the Echoes 100% to handle the action in this game. And I found that to be a little bit strange as well. But ultimately, there's just so much trial and error of figuring out, like, what Echo you're supposed to use. Now, there is, like, a handful of Echoes that after you play it for 10, 15 hours, you start to realize that there's like a few that just work and kind of break the game, in all honesty. Eventually you get like this plate that you can stand on that will like hover across like large like chasms and things like that, and it kind of removes the whole need to like build like ramps or whatever to get up high on things. You also get like eventually you get
same with some of the birds.
The birds, like you can use the birds to just fly over everything. And there is some cool stuff, like, so, like, you can get on a bed. In the first early part of this game, you stack beds, like, over and over to get over gaps. But eventually you learn, you get, like, this other creature that basically is like a turbo boost, and you get on a bed, use the creature's turbo boost, and it will shoot you, like, up into the sky. Like, there is stuff where you can experiment with it, like you do in Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. But what you realize is that there's so many Echoes, you don't need to do that. There's an Echo for every specific little thing that you can do in this game. And so, like, while it's fun and kind of cool to, like, screw around with the physics and combine, like, multiple Echoes together, ultimately you don't have to. You can use the trampoline to get pretty much everywhere. You can stack trampolines. Once you get a trampoline, none of the other stuff matters.
Oh, the trampoline is oddly easy to miss. I've only seen one in the world.
We're going to get to that in a minute, because I missed it, Matt. And the game doesn't tell you.
I didn't miss it, but like as I kept going and realizing how often I was using it and realizing that I hadn't seen another one, I'm like, man, what if I hadn't found that trampoline?
That is what happened to me. I played the first like 10 or 11 hours without the trampoline. And then I realized, I'm like, it was in like the first area
it's in
there.
The very first populated area.
Because you don't realize at first that anything that is sparkling, you can turn into an Echo.
Well, I mean, they tell you that.
I didn't realize it for the first like hour or two. And then I'm like, oh, okay, anything that's sparkling, I can use the wand on it and I can turn it into an Echo that I can use for the rest of the game. I didn't realize it in that very first little hamlet that you go to that has the trampoline. I got the trampoline later, and I was so mad. I was like, man, I've been stacking, like, these stupid tables and beds to get up over these things, and I could have just used a trampoline all along. So eventually you do find, like, 5 or 6 Echoes that you can use and abuse over and over. And I don't know if that's good either, because then it makes the other 200 Echoes seem frivolous and pointless. Like, then there's other parts where it's like, okay, if you do try to get creative with some of the echoes, the game just won't let you. Like, I went into one area, and there's, like, this fence, and then on the other side of the fence, there's a water pool, and you need to, like, because you also have telepathy in this, where you can move stuff with your mind, basically. And what you need to do is you need to move the box onto a switch, but do it through the fence. You can't get near the box. And I'm like, well, screw this. I'm just going to build something to jump over the fence and go in and just move the damn thing instead of fiddling around with this weird telepathy crap. It won't let you. There's an invisible wall keeping you below the top of the fence line. And that stuff happens all the time in this game, where you're like, oh, I found out a clever way to do this. And nope, the game's like, there is a very specific thing that we want you to use here. And if you try to use anything else, it's not going to work. Now, that isn't 100%. There are plenty of times in this game where you can be creative, and it does actually work.
That's more in the, like...
The dungeons.
The dungeons and designed areas. If you're out in the open world and you see something, you can probably improv your way to just about anything.
Yep, but inside the dungeons...
in the dungeons, they're very particular about it.
Very rigid about it. But here's the thing that maybe people... If you're like Matt and I, and you feel a little upset that Zelda has turned into something that you don't particularly love anymore, now that it's sort of in this Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom vein... This game does have a traditional Zelda structure. It has areas that you go to, you do some stuff in that area, they're like, hey, there's the dungeon over there. You go to the dungeon, you fight through the dungeon, and it plays like a normal Zelda game. You come out, you get your heart piece after you beat the boss.
Except it's like, the thing about this for me is that it's like, you can do pretty much all the things you do in a normal Zelda game. They've just put like 4 steps between you and
just made it annoying.
It's like, Link would swing his sword and kill this thing. Yeah. I have to summon a thing, and then usually I'm gonna have to pick it up with Tri's ability to like move something, and I move the enemy over to it, and I pull it away so it doesn't get hurt, and I move it in again.
Yeah.
Like it's just I'm holding 4 buttons to do what Link would do with the press of a Y button.
It starts to get ridiculous
and it just feels
too.
So. I don't see any point to it.
Well, after a while, I just started drowning all the enemies because eventually you get an echo that is a block of water,
right?
And you can summon the block of water, pick it up with the wand, and just put the block of water over the head of the enemy, and they die.
Yeah, which is weirdly sadistic.
It's crazy. You can pick enemies up and just drop them in the water, and they drown. Like that is where this game does have a little bit of an edge to it. Mm-hmm. Like you can get pretty sinister in this game with like some of the echoes that they give you. And I don't know if it's all intentional or not, but again, it's like, why do I need to summon a water block and then pick it up with this magical rod and then get it over the head of this enemy? Just let me hack it 3 times with a sword and kill it. Like, that's what I'm talking about when I said in the early part of this discussion about the tedium of the game. Like, it just forces you through all this trial and error when it could be so much easier. And that is what has ground me down to the point where I'm about 20 hours in, and I'm kind of done. I don't want to play it anymore. I've got sick of having to go through the tedium of using all the echoes. There's just way too many of them. I feel like this is lazy Zelda design. In the past, Nintendo would find objects or items that were multi-purpose. So they only needed 8 or 9 of them because each one of them could do multiple things. In this, it's like every one of them is a very specific thing for a very specific purpose. And therefore, you end up sorting through this gigantic list of abilities and items to accomplish very simple tasks. And over time, it just grinds you down.
I wouldn't call it lazy because I think this took a lot of work, what they're doing here. I just don't think it's worth it.
It's just not as creative. Like, if they could have just found like 10 echoes that do a bunch of different stuff, and then you're not sorting through this list of like 200 of them trying to find the right one.
The bloat is kind of inherent to sort of the current theory of Zelda.
Right.
And it's like the Tears of the Kingdom thing where it's like, even when I solved the puzzle, quote unquote, it doesn't feel like I solved anything because it feels like it's like the difference between, there's no difference between like solving a puzzle in this game or in Tears of the Kingdom and like feeling like you kind of cheated your way past it. Like it's like the thing where it's the treasure chest on top of the tower. It's like, what do I need to do? Where do I need to go? And in old Zelda games, you would have had to go over here and climb up something and parasail over to the thing and land on it. And in Tears of the Kingdom, it's like, just glue a bunch of boards together and make a ramp. There you go. And it's like that. And
this game has that too,
and there's no satisfaction. I'm like, okay, how do I get up there? I guess I just stack beds in a big staircase and jump onto the trampoline at the end, and there you go. And it's just like, okay.
You can search through your list and find that one goofy little echo that does exactly what you want it to do, or you could just stack the beds. And so you just stack the freaking beds.
Well, eventually you get the spider that can crawl up anything.
Right.
So you just grab you summon the spider, you attach yourself to the spider,
Let the spider
crawls
crawl.
up, pulls you up there, you're up there. It's like, okay, so I get up any wall I want now.
They kind of it breaks the game.
And that seems to be intentional, they want you to do that, but I don't again, we talked about this with Tears of the Kingdom, and it's one of the things I like about Zelda is kind of playing in the puzzle box they make, and it feels like the puzzle box now is if you want to just rip this open, you can. If you want to just break it and see what's inside, go ahead. It doesn't feel like there's a conversation between me and the level designer anymore. It feels like the game designer said, "Hey, you know that level designer? Fuck that guy.
Seriously,
you can do whatever you want. You can summon anything and just get." And it's there's no real line between oh, they intended me to do it this way, or there's no and because there's no intended to in this game. You're just supposed to figure your way out.
Yeah.
And I just don't find that as satisfying as kind of playing by the rules a little bit. I mean, for lack of a better term, it doesn't scratch the same itch.
I agree 1,000%. This isn't. I really struggle to call this an RPG. You can level up the sword.
Yeah, no, this is an adventure game.
You can level up the bow, and you do have a quote unquote level, but it's not an RPG.
No, this is an adventure. This is an adventure game in the way Zelda 1 was an adventure game. It is a it is a classic Zelda design. The world, I think the overworld in this is about as classic Zelda as anything has been since Link to the Past.
And the fast travel's great. There's fast travel points everywhere. You never have to run that far or travel that far in this game once you start unlocking all that stuff. However, I do feel like some of the signposting in this game is a little messed up. So I finished the first area, and then I went to Gerudo Desert, and the waypoint points you down to this group of 3 guys. You go and you talk to them, and they say a bunch of crap, but they don't tell you what to do or where to go.
They tell you to go to the village, but they don't. They tell you but then you'll end up I ended up at an oasis. And I didn't realize it wasn't the village.
Right.
And then the waypoint marker stayed on the 3 guys. And so eventually I just wandered around, and I think I did what you did. I wandered north, and I went to all the little holes and found all the treasure in there. And I fought the sandstorm monster, and I did all this. I'm like, there's got to be
a major thing I do
somewhere,
here?
right?
Yeah.
Because they say you can go here or here. You can go to the Zora stuff or the Gerudo stuff, and after the first dungeon, and And I'm like, well, I'm north of where the rift is on the map, so I guess I'll go down there. And then I accidentally stumbled into a cutscene, and the actual dungeon quest started.
Yeah, see, that didn't happen for me. I went and cleared the entire Gerudo Desert. I went into Gerudo Town. I did everything in there. I solved the sandstorm. The sandstorm went away.
See, I didn't get to Gerudo Town until the character in that cutscene said, "Hey, meet me in Gerudo
Oh, really?
Town." I'm like, oh, there's another thing over there. Okay.
I went there right away. And then I solved the sandstorm. I killed the boss. And I was like, where in the hell is the dungeon? I went up to Zora and finished almost the entire Zora dungeon, and then came back down and stumbled into the entrance of the dungeon in the Gerudo Desert.
And I mean, look, that is technically very classic Zelda.
But here's the thing.
The first game didn't even tell you where the dungeons were.
A lot of the stuff that I had done got wiped out. So getting rid of the sandstorm, when I started that mission finally, the sandstorm came back. And I had to go back and do a bunch of crap to get rid of the sandstorm again. So it made me kind of double dip and do some stuff twice.
That is interesting.
This is stuff that I've never experienced in a Zelda game before. It gives you the freedom, but that freedom ended up kind of screwing me. Because I literally, started in Gerudo Desert, went and did stuff for 8 hours, and then accidentally found the dungeon entrance and came back and had to do the Gerudo dungeon after I'd already done all the other stuff that I was supposed to do after I had completed the dungeon. So, there's, the signposting, telling you what you need to do, where you need to go. 90% of the time, it's fine. There's a waypoint that you go there, and that's exactly where you need to be. It's that other 10% that will drive you mad. Because, again, it's this gigantic open world, and you're going to run around and waste a ton of time instead of doing what you're supposed to be doing. And, again, as somebody who really values their time at this point in my life, it started to piss me off a little bit. I get it. If you're a 5-year-old kid, you don't care. You're kind of happy you stumble across that dungeon accidentally later on. For me, someone who values their time, it kind of pissed me off. And then there's other stuff that you get in the game. There's equipment, you can get Zora's flippers, which help you swim faster. There's Zora's scale, which lets you stay underwater longer.
I mean, it's all stuff you've used before.
Yeah. There's Gerudo sandals. It'll keep you from sinking into quicksand. And, like, the thing is, like, you don't need any of that stuff. I made it through all these dungeons without it, and then only once I had a ton of money...
All you need is a bed and a will to use it. Seriously.
And you need a bed, you need the flying panel, and...
Even life isn't an issue in this game, because you can just sleep.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. If you're, like, down on health, you just spawn a bed and lay in the bed and fill your health all the way up.
And as you get better beds, you heal faster.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty funny.
I have still died in this because I just get lazy. And I'm like, I don't want to throw down a bed.
I don't want to go to sleep.
Seriously. And so I just die instead. But if you do die, the punishment for it is nothing. Literally, you respawn like 10 virtual feet away from where she died. So,
I don't have a problem with that.
Right. So. Yeah, I'm not complaining about that at all. But I'm just saying, like, the whole hearts thing, which is a big part of the game, really doesn't matter at all.
Oh, you did that? That's interesting.
Did what? Oh, to get through this?
Yeah, well, I just blocked it with boulders.
Yeah, but see, that is one thing about this game. You can find multiple ways to do pretty much everything.
But it's also kind of, it's like, okay, so you blocked it with the big tree. I blocked it with a boulder. It's like, what's the fucking difference?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Like, why not just have an item that does that?
Yep.
I don't...
Yeah. But so, yeah, there's
it's an illusion. It's an illusion of choice.
Yeah.
Because it's all really just reskin things that do the same thing. And you have to scroll. Maybe I wouldn't mind so much if I didn't have to scroll through this giant fucking list
of
every
crap.
time.
Well, again, once you get to a certain point, there's only a few things that you really need to do everything. There's the trampoline, there's the flying tile, and there's this thing called the plat boom. And that is just a platform that goes up and down. And goes up, like, up to 30 feet. So you never have to build anything to get up a wall ever again. Or, as you said, you can just use the spider that'll crawl up the wall. Like, over time, there's a handful of things that you really need to get through it. And I just feel like they break the game. And I don't know if it was on purpose. In all honesty.
I'm just stunned that you can't make, like, a separate, like, favorites menu.
Right. You should be able to customize and create exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Which may come in, like, an update later on, would be my guess. I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being a part of a later update.
I mean, even the Lego games let you do that.
Yeah. And as we said, you also get the telepathic ability where you can use the rod to pick up huge objects and move them. And so there's a bunch of objectives where you got to move a bunch of big boulders out of the way to open up pathways and things like that. Or you pick up items and drop them on switches to open doors. There's also a whole mechanic in the game, and I didn't have this in the B-roll, where you make smoothies.
Right.
So you collect, like, all these resources out in the world, like grapes and all this other crap, and then you mix smoothies, and if you make 10 different smoothies, then you get, like, a bonus, and you make another 20 smoothies, you get another bonus. But those
I do appreciate that if you put weird ingredients together, you will end up with an unfortunate smoothie.
Yeah.
And they like mosaic out the smoothie.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was a very funny joke.
There's some little stuff like that. But again, this is a whole system that they built into this game that is completely irrelevant, because all the smoothies do is just replenish your health, or maybe give you like
resistance
against electricity.
Shit you do not need.
You don't need.
All. Like, it's not.
Now, there is a harder difficulty setting. I played the default setting. There's a harder one that you can choose, and I do wonder if maybe on that harder setting that stuff matters, but on the default difficulty setting, the health doesn't matter at all, and therefore the smoothies don't matter at all. It's just this thing that they added into the game for, like, no reason. Like,
it sounds like the most, like, anti-self-help health thing anyone's ever. It's just like, yeah, health doesn't matter at all, so the smoothies don't matter at all. It's like the anti-TikTok trend setter.
Well, you can look at my waistline and get the gist about that.
Too many unfortunate smoothies.
Yeah. And then there's the map. We talked about how the fast travel is really awesome. There's 2 difficulty settings.
I ate a smoothie with grapes and butter. That probably wouldn't taste very good. I'm sorry.
Matt, I do think that people who enjoy Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom more than we do will probably like this game a lot more than we do.
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, I for all I kind of bag on Tears of the Kingdom, they figured out a way to make the controls for the building and tinkering work a lot smoother than this. Like, I find this to be very awkward.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the time.
You're just always fiddling with it. Like, you do learn. Like, eventually,
I desperately, like, when you pick something up with
the telepathy,
and like move, and like, I do that a lot. I make a strong enemy echo, and I pick him up like 10 feet away, and I just walk with him in front of me, and he just hits things as I walk through. But, like, you can't move it. To move it, like, if you're holding him to the left and you want to hold him to the right, you have to put him down, walk the other side. And I desperately want to use the stick to Pikmin him.
Yeah.
To move him around like a Pikmin.
I mean, this game feels a lot like Pikmin.
There is some Pikmin
as far as combat's concerned, because you're basically just spawning stuff to fight the enemies.
Yeah.
And here's a pro tip for you, Matt.
Except Pikmin 4 has the dog.
Right.
And the dog solves a lot of problems that this game hasn't solved.
You're right. Yeah. But it shows you that they had to find a fix for it in Pikmin as well. Yeah. And here's a pro tip for you. Matt, have you got the one Echo that is like a plant that spins with blades?
No.
Oh. Well, if you get that, it becomes the destroyer of the game.
Well, early on, I was using the sea urchins just as like...
With the electricity or whatever?
Well, the electricity, but also once I got the wind cannon. You stand on the wind cannon and just drop sea urchins in front of it, and it just shoots spiked balls at things.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, now I have a machine gun. It's like, yeah.
You do stumble across stuff like that.
And there's things where it's like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I should probably think this is great. I should think this is really cool, but mostly I'm just sort of annoyed.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I feel like I'm only doing this because she won't fucking hit anything. You know, like I wish she would just hit something with a sword.
I wish that
she seems very capable.
I wish that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom had the structure of this game with real dungeons.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%.
And again, I do think that if you're like Matt and I, who appreciate the older school Zeldas, that part of the game you will like more than Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild.
Like, there is definitely a pedigree of Link's Awakening to this that is very pleasant to me.
Yep.
It just, once you get in the dungeon, I'm like, oh yeah, another dungeon. But you get in the dungeon, it's just like, I'm still doing stupid object tricks here instead of actually solving a dungeon.
Yeah.
Like, if you mix Tears of the Kingdom and this game together and do all the opposite things that I think Nintendo would do when they did that, I feel like you'd have my ideal Zelda game.
Yeah. The other thing that bothers me, too, is that a lot of the more challenging parts of this game where you're fighting, like, big groups of enemies that are tough enemies or whatever, you finally beat them, the chime goes, the Zelda chime plays, the chest unlocks, you climb up, you open the chest, and you get a bunch of grapes.
Yep. Hope you like your apple.
It's like, F you, man. But this game is built in such a way that there is no way to give a player a great reward.
Right, there is no... the best is probably a purple rupee.
Right,
and it's like, and it's like, you got a purple rupee. That makes you happy. I'm like,
no, it really doesn't, man. It really does not make me happy at all. Because they're stingy with the rupees in this as well. Like, I had played for like 20 hours and had like 2,000 rupees. Like, they really...
At least there's no limit on the wallet.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, look, there are angles of this game that will ingratiate it to different types of people. If you like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you're going to like the fiddling around and the experimenting with the Echo stuff.
If you like, I don't know, Scribblenauts.
Yeah.
Like, it's got an element of that to it. I think Scribblenauts actually did it better. I think Scribblenauts was I think the experimentation in Scribblenauts felt a lot more intentional than this does. This feels sort of like, we're giving you the tools to work around our lack of design.
Pretty much.
Basically.
It feels like I break the game a lot. And again, they're probably like, we know it's in there and we're okay with you breaking the game, but it just feels, it's just weird. It's just a weird way to play through a game.
It doesn't feel like I'm working with the developers to figure these things out. It feels like they're like, well, there's a bunch of ways you could do this, so just do one of them.
Yeah.
We'll see in the next room.
Right,
you know?
And as long as you're in the open world, you can do that. But in the dungeons, it becomes a lot more rigid, and they want you to use very specific echoes, and that's when it really starts to get tedious. What you're seeing now is so
especially
early,
when it's things. I mean, I also feel this. Like, one of the reasons the thing when, like, you know, the chest unlocks or whatever. Normally, that's a great sound to me. It's but a lot of times in this game, like, especially when you have to beat a bunch of moblins or whatever and get the thing, I'm like, okay, great. I could have done that in 4 seconds with Link.
Yeah.
And of course, I guess you can turn into the swordsman ghost thing and do that if you want to use the energy for it.
I mean, I started like cheesing using it to jump higher. I just turn it on for a second, jump higher, turn it off.
A couple times I have done that where I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to I don't want to hold my enemy and throw all these guys and target this. I'm just going to
turn it on and kill them. Because you don't really need it. Like, if you actually use it on a boss fight, you can kill the boss in, like, one flurry of swipes. Like, the other thing, too, is the boss fights in this, it's hard to tell if you're actually landing hits on them. Like, I don't know how many you fought.
I only fought 2. I didn't find that.
I found it hard to tell. Like, they have, like, just a white flash very quickly. And it's like, if you blink, you will actually miss it. I found it hard to figure.
I guess I guess that they don't really indicate. It's just like, when you're hitting the orb, you assume you're doing the right thing.
A lot of times when the boss died, I was like, oh, okay, I guess I was doing damage to the boss. So, again, I think that parts of this game will appeal to different types of Zelda players, but I don't think it's going to appeal to all of them, I guess is the best way that I could put it. And ultimately, I have played this game for like 20 hours. And if I had spent $60 on something that I played for 20 hours, that's kind of okay. Like
I don't. This shouldn't be $60.
Really?
I think this game is $40.
I mean, I feel like I got my entertainment out of it for $60.
I don't feel like that was quality time.
Yeah.
I don't like this game very much.
Yeah, I picked up on that.
I just don't. Like, there's nothing wrong with it in terms of presentation or. I mean, it's not like I think they were late. I don't think they were lazy. I don't think it's like a skimping on anything. I don't think. I mean, it's fucking pushing the Switch to the limit at points. Like,
we didn't even talk about
this is bonkers.
Yeah, there's like when you first start, for some reason, the first couple areas
it chugs.
It almost stops.
Well,
it's so bad.
Well, part of I mean, it's got an unlocked frame rate for some reason.
Yeah.
So like in smaller scenes inside, talking to people, it's running at like 60. Sometimes it can chug sub 30. I think what's happened because it doesn't do that in the desert. What I think is happening is I think that in the forested Hyrule Forest areas, I think it's because every tree is an object.
Probably
because you can, and you even see that when you restore the rifts, it puts every tree back kind of individually.
Yeah.
I think that's what's happening. It's running so many objects on screen. The Switch is kind of
it's very
and
possible.
it looks like the game's about to crash sometimes, and it doesn't. I've never had any crash. Me
either, actually.
But it's so weird. I'm like, I don't know why they unlocked the frame rate.
I don't either.
It would be better to have it constant. I think.
I agree.
Again, I'd be very curious how this would run on the Switch 2.
I would assume it would run.
I bet it would run like butter.
I mean, it's not that demanding. Like
no. Makes me wonder if they thought this was maybe going to be able to be played on either at this point.
Maybe. Or maybe the new console is supposed to be out by now.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like or soon, and be like, oh, you'll also be able to play it on Switch, but you're leaving the frame rate unlocked. That would explain that because you'd actually be able to take advantage of that on the new system.
And the other thing to keep in mind too is like you're watching our B-roll, but our B-roll is always really early in games. We don't record footage from later because we don't want to spoil things for you guys. But you may be looking at the menu and being like, what the hell are Shane and Matt complaining about? There's like 20 things there. That's very early.
That's like hour one.
Yeah, like you get 20 hours in, man, that thing is like a mile long. And you can hold right, it goes...
Yeah. I mean, you can go left and go to the other end.
Yeah, tap it an extra time, it'll cycle around.
If I get, like when I got that spider, I'm like, okay, I'm definitely going to use this. So I went over and I just picked it and I just...
Tapped left.
I just summoned it like 14 times. And I'm like, okay, now you're at the top of my list and we're good.
Yeah. So anyway, for me personally, the search goes on for me to find a modern Zelda game that I really love. That's just the truth of the matter. They don't make Zeldas for me anymore. Now that we've been through 3 of them, I've kind of accepted it at this point. Like it's just
I mean, you should probably look into like the Zelda randomizers, and things like that. Like there's some Link to the Past derived randomizers that actually do a pretty good job
of kind of reshuffling the game, making it feel like a new.
Well, it's also using new stuff that other fans have designed and other stuff. Like you're always getting a new kind of setup, and it's not as structured, obviously, because it's random. But like you feel like you're playing. It's closer than this.
Yeah. Well, let's bring you guys in. We've talked about the game now for a while. Let's see what you guys are saying about it. Vincent says it's not unlocked. It's just that it locks to 30 if it can't hit 60, and then bottoms out to about 12. And to be fair, it's really bad at first. Like the first few areas literally feel like the game's going to crash. And then it kind of goes away, and it only comes back here and there when you go to very specific areas. It's not like the whole time the game is chugging along.
But every once in a while, you'll see the frame rate very noticeably change when you're in a heavily wooded area or if you're in an area and then suddenly you walk into a place with a lot of water. Like that'll do
you're
it.
right. It'll buckle it. Yep.
It's just noticeable, and it doesn't really impact anything. Like it never impacted gameplay. It never was a problem when I was fighting anything, whatever. It's just weird to see in a Nintendo game. They don't usually usually the performance on Nintendo stuff is just locked down.
At least since the N64 era.
Yeah, obviously, if you want to go back a quarter century, yes,
which is now a quarter century. Swanland says Darksiders has become my modern Zelda. I can get that.
Okay, the last Darksiders game was like 7 years ago.
Vincent says if you want a more traditional Zelda game, go play Dungeons of Hinterberg. We did.
I did.
We covered it on the show. We played it.
And I wouldn't really call that very Zelda-ish because there's not a ton of puzzles to solve.
Yeah, I didn't feel like that was Zelda-ish at all.
I don't.
It was just like an instance-based action RPG.
Yeah, it's very pleasant.
Yeah,
we liked
it a lot. Yeah, we liked the game a lot.
No, I wouldn't call that a Zelda game outside of there are in fact some dungeons that are called dungeons, but like you're not solving it. You're not Yeah.
Yeah. Swish Muffin asks, does combat make you feel like a spectator more than an active participant? No.
No, because I got to babysit everything too much.
No, it's too much. It's the opposite. You have to do too much. You have to like hold down the right D-pad or L1 or whatever, then scroll through all the items and then select it and then hope when you let off of it, the enemies aren't like right on you as soon as it like.
Well, that's never been an issue for me. It's just like I got to summon the thing and then they move too slow and don't attack enough, so it's much faster to just summon it and pick it up and hold it in front of the enemy and then like summon another. There's no cooldown on summoning.
I just keep summoning.
So you just resummon.
Because what happens is they'll swing and attack, some of them.
And then you have to wait for.
And then they'll wait to do their animation routine before they attack again. But if you just summon it again, he just does the attack.
There's no cooldown.
Does the attack.
There's no cooldown and there's no like magic bar for that.
Yeah.
So you can only summon so many at a time.
It's just too much. Like it could be so simple if you just had a damn sword and a bow.
Right. That's exactly it. It's like Link can do this much faster. And I know Zelda isn't Link, but you know what? Zelda's also been Sheik, and Zelda has also fought herself. I mean, that's why I thought it was the obvious thing to let you play as Zelda would have been in Tears of the Kingdom, because that version of Zelda is already wearing pants.
Yeah,
she's already pretty much a warrior. Like, let her swing a sword or a I mean, whatever. Like, let her have some kind of offensive capability.
Yeah.
Like, I don't.
Kai Mill 1983, would it help if the echoes were split into categories?
I think so.
It would, but like we said, they do give you like 4 or 5 different options to sort them by. None of them are all that helpful, though.
I think if you did, I mean, in my head, I'm thinking like the crossbar thing would be fine, but you need to separate it like a slot machine into item types.
And maybe if you hold it, it jumps to type.
Yeah.
That might work.
You can scroll across.
Yeah.
But then like you can select. You can have
you can go up or down.
Yeah, up or down.
Yeah.
Like this up or down is all furniture. This
that
up
would
or
make
down
sense.
is all enemies. This up or down is all like nature.
That's a great
things.
way to do it. We just came up with a better way to do it in 5 minutes here on GameFace.
So you can kind of set that up. I would also have some kind of favorites menu that you can switch out instead.
You should be able to customize it, period.
Yeah.
You should be able to select everything in that bar. And again, I do think Nintendo will eventually release an update with that.
There's certain things in that menu that I know I am never going to summon again.
Yeah.
Like
there's some I've never used, ever.
I don't need the bat.
No.
I'm sorry, bat.
Because I have
love
like
you, bat,
5 other different birds that do more damage and like... Vincent asks, would you rather have had this or the Zelda maker Grezzo was designing it first? Which also is a rumor that came out over the last week. I'm not a big fan of Super Mario Maker, so I would probably rather play this.
I think I'd rather have that.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd guarantee I'd like it more.
Yeah.
But I think it would have had a better chance of hooking me more.
Yeah.
I also wouldn't have been thrilled about paying $60 for that, though.
Yeah. That's all your questions. I'm surprised you guys don't have more questions for a new Zelda game. The Amazing Vector, first time chat. What's up, man? Welcome to GameFace. Questmaster on Steam has some good levels. Okay. Thank you. Swanland says, but Matt, when was the last traditional 3D Zelda? I mean, it was Tears of the Kingdom, right?
No, that's not a traditional
Zelda.
I'm
sorry, not Tears of the Kingdom.
I would say it's Twilight Princess.
Twilight Princess, that's what I was thinking of, yeah. Yep, that was the last one. People were talking about Tunic. Yeah, I was not a huge fan of Tunic. Squishy
I like Tunic,
right.
but I didn't finish
okay.
it, so... The thing that shocks me is that they didn't bring Twilight Princess HD to the Switch. They got the HD version of that and Wind Waker just sitting on the Wii U, and they didn't bring them forward.
Yeah,
so
they got to hold something for Switch too, because somebody asked me that on Ask Shane Anything also, like what happens now, because Nintendo doesn't have a bunch of games to remake anymore. I guess
so. They don't have a Zelda for a while, that's for sure.
By the way, you guys ask really good questions for Ask Shane Anything. If you're not watching Ask Shane Anything, you should, man, because it is literally, I feel, our community at their best. I don't know why. You guys save good questions for Ask Shane Anything that you don't ask for Pachter Factor. I don't understand it. But that was one of the questions that they asked in a recent episode. So, but you should be watching. Squishy Muffin, Plucky Squire, or Echoes?
Echoes.
That's a tough one.
Echoes annoys me, but Echoes doesn't feel like it insults my intelligence.
Yeah.
And it does have, early on, it does have the hand-holdy stuff, but it lets you go after the first dungeon like any Zelda game would. I do not feel insulted by Echoes of Wisdom.
Yeah. I mean, it does feel like it's made for younger audiences.
It does, but it trusts you in a way that Plucky Squire does not.
And in some ways, that was a mistake to trust me, because I wandered off and like...
Yeah. Plucky Squire would never have let you wander around the desert for an hour. That's true.
I would probably also agree with Echoes of Wisdom, but I think it's close. I think that Plucky Squire is more innovative and fresh than this.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think Echoes is a more successful game.
It's a better game.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we move on? We're here to answer you guys. If you haven't played it yet and you're a Zelda fan, you want to know the real skinny on this game, we're here. Going once, going twice.
Well, you got to scroll down.
Oh, we're not at the bottom?
It says chat pause.
Or we're like one away. How many dungeons are there? I don't know. I haven't finished it, but I've played through 5 already.
My guess would be 8.
Probably.
There's usually 8.
Yeah. There's a lot, and there's enough. That's what I would say. Okay. I guess that's all your questions for Echoes of Wisdom. So there you go. That's The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Do you recommend people buy it, Matt?
No. Not for $60.
Yeah.
Not that but again, it's never going to fucking drop, so what am I talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, if you think it looks cool, buy it. But, if that doesn't look tedious to you, you'll probably like it. But I'm not happy I paid for that game.
Yeah.
Like, I'm never going to finish it. I'm not
going to finish it either. I would say if you like Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, you'll like it. And I don't think you'll regret buying it.
I don't know if that's true. I think some people who like those games are going to be irritated by how
the limitations of the experimentation
of the experimentation, and how it is a traditional Zelda format. It doesn't leave you to run around. It doesn't give you the same experience as that. It just, the tedium of having to stack boxes is similar. Or
find the box in the list of all the other crap.
There's no real canon way to solve this puzzle. You just got to use what you got to get around the obstacle.
Yeah.
That's the same. But I don't know, if you one of your favorite things about Tears of the Kingdom is building weird contraptions and figuring out strange, like, elaborate ways to get around things. That's not in this game.
Yeah.
The free form.
They try to,
but the free form stuff is still limited enough that it doesn't feel very satisfying in comparison to what you can do in Tears of the Kingdom. So, again, I think if you can just watch a video of this and understand whether this is for you or not, in comparison to what Tears of the Kingdom does versus what, like, say, Link's Awakening does, is probably the closest comparison to the traditional Zelda stuff they're pulling from. I would say, obviously not coincidence, because this is the team that did the remake of Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
Link even looks the same. It's not the same Link.
Yeah,
it's not the same universe. Yeah. It's not a sequel to Link's Awakening.
It's over that dumb Zelda timeline crap. But, even Nintendo at this point is like, we give up.
There's even a reference in this where one of the people in the old village that Link's from says that he lost his ability to speak at one point, and it's just like, that's a way around that, I guess. Why not? Sure.
So anyway, there you go. That's The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and obviously it is only a Switch exclusive. I would also not be surprised if next year there's a DX version for Switch 2 that comes out.
I don't know. Like, maybe here's a DX version with an actual workable menu system.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
$70.
Okay, we're about to move on and talk about all the awesome games that were in the Sony State of Play. But before we do that, here's a word from our sponsor, the Lands of Hyberian. Welcome to the Lands of Hyberian, an old-school turn-based RPG with a point-and-click adventure vibe. It's under development by Sifter Hussein Stealthy Zaban. He's trying to finish his first ever video game, but he needs your help. The game currently includes around 4 hours of content, complete with 49 achievements, but his goal is to improve what he's already created and add another 2 hours before it's complete. Right now, as part of this special promotion, you can purchase this game for just $1. That goes towards things like trading cards, replacing AI art, voice acting, and the soundtrack. While it's certainly not required, Stealthy is hoping you'll provide as much feedback as possible to make this the first video game truly crafted by the Sifted community. There's work to be done, but Sifted Army, let's band together and try to make the best game possible. It's in Steam Early Access right now, and you can find a link to its product page in the description below, or just search for The Lands of Hyberian on Steam. Let's do this! So this week, I went to the Steam page for The Lands of Hyberian and checked it out, and I just want to say that I was very pleasantly surprised to see how many people who were on my friends list on Steam, and there's a bunch of you sifters on there, had already went and purchased the game. So thank you very much. Let's keep it going. Go to Steam, search for Lands of Hyberian, Hyberian. Buy the game. It only costs $1. And I think maybe the better way to maybe do this is just leave your comments right there on the game page. Like, you can buy the game, and you can start leaving comments about it. So if you have suggestions on the way Stealthy can make the game better, or ways to improve things in a very simple way, anything like that, leave it there on the page for Stealthy. Again, we're trying to make this a community effort to help him finish his last game. Again, search for The Lands of Hyberian on Steam, and it's spelled Hyberian. Okay, and with that, it is time to move on to the Sony State of Play for September 2024. It happened while we were doing last week's show. It happened live, and you guys were feeding us with a couple nuggets that came out of the State of Play, so we knew that the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima was shown, and a couple other smaller things. We knew Power World for PlayStation 5 was launching, stealth launching, but a bunch of stuff has happened since then, and we didn't talk about all the rest of the stuff. Now, I will say this. Looking at the clock, we're going to have to get through these pretty quickly, but there is a lot of stuff, so bear with us. We're not going to beleaguer pretty much any of these games that were shown. We need to get through them pretty quickly. Keep that in mind too, Matt. But first of all, we obviously need to talk about the biggest game of them all. We're going to spend a little bit of time on this. Ghost of Yotei. The sequel to Ghost of Tsushima is Ghost of Yotei.
Well, they called it a spiritual successor.
Yeah. So there's going to be a Ghost of Tsushima too.
They're not quite ruling out doing something with Jin again.
Okay, which is cool.
Fine.
I love Jin. Yeah. This is set 300 years after Ghost of Tsushima. Is there any connective tissue between the two?
I mean, I would be surprised if at some point there isn't some kind of reference to this ancient samurai, samurai of old who fought off the, I'm sure there'll be some kind of connection in that regard.
Or maybe you go somewhere and there's books about him.
She could theoretically be a descendant,
right?
That's true. Because right after the time of Tsushima is when the samurai families continue to and this is right around the time I believe samurai became an elite class and not just a warrior class, so like you had to be born into it to be a true Bushido kind of thing.
Yep.
So that might be part of this here. But the most important part of this is that there's guns now.
Yeah, that's a big change.
It's the advent of flintlock rifles and the incursion of the West for the first time.
Right.
In similar to what Rise of the Ronin's setting was. Except this is up in Hokkaido, up in the top of Japan, and there's going to inevitably be conflict and interaction with the Ainu, who are sort of the native population up there. They're not historically they are not treated as particularly equal by the other Japanese in Japan. Like they are kind of looked down on, a lower caste, if you will. And they're kind of considered, there's sort of at the very least, they're sometimes considered sort of the country bumpkin or sort of the Native American equivalent of Japan sort of thing. If you've played Samurai Showdown, Nakoruru with the falcon and the kind of the rural village, she's Ainu.
Oh, okay.
So that's
I didn't
sort of
know
where
that.
some of that comes from.
That's great. What do you think of this trailer?
I think it's cool.
Little boring, maybe.
It's very tone poemy.
Yeah.
It doesn't really tell you anything other than the setting, and I do like the Western theme. Like it has kind of an old Western, like almost a spaghetti Western theme. So clearly they're going back to that sort of the Kurosawa style. Because obviously
who is the director? Leone or whatever that did
Sergio Leone.
Yeah.
Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns were largely remakes of Kurosawa's Samurai.
Yeah.
And the other thing you see, I think, once you get into the part where they start showing her, is a lot of people are saying this looks pretty much the same as the first game in terms of visuals, and it's true. I mean, I think the first
similar look.
I think the first one did kind of push the PS4 Pro to about as far as you could go in terms of what it was doing.
Yeah.
This one has much wider vistas. You can see further. There's more stuff happening around. You would never see that many horses on screen at the same time in the first game.
Yeah. Also, we forgot to mention she has a wolf sidekick.
She does have a wolf. So while you're guided by the wind in the first one, maybe you'll be guided by wolves in this one.
The scent of the wolf,
and with that plus the horses thing where she's right. It made me wonder if she's going to have more of an animal kinship theme to her.
It kind of feels that way.
Yeah.
I mean, animals are a big theme throughout this entire trailer.
Yeah, and also animals are a big theme in the first one.
Yeah,
too. Like
that's
he
true.
has Jin is very kind to animals and has a very big concern over how the animals are in the fights and stuff. you basically at one point he pretty much stops the game to go find his horse after he loses the horse at one point. And I kind of appreciate that. I like that about him. The fox is like, if a fox likes you, you got to be a good dude, right? So I think they're expanding on that here. So it wouldn't surprise me if the animal kinship was kind of her like foundation there, and maybe you get like a wind guidance thing later when you discover the legend of Jin Satome later. And that something like that.
Yeah, that might be cool. So this is coming next year.
Because the wind is obviously still here.
Yeah,
you can see it.
I mean, I think they make a point to show that as well. Yeah. This is coming to PS5 next year. Have they even hinted at like what quarter of next year?
No, they just said 2025.
Yeah. What is your guess? This is Q4.
I'm guessing Q4. Yeah.
This is their big Q4.
I think their big holiday game.
That's what I think too. I think it looks awesome. The trailer is a little.
I don't.
Got a little more
like
action.
That shot's fantastic.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Because you know that's real time. Like this is really in the game.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I mean, the last 20 seconds of this trailer is the best parts of it. Like,
and you can see like in that shot with her and all the moving, all this.
That shot right there.
All this stuff. Like there's more stuff on screen, and the fidelity. That's the thing, is that like the sharpness of this is you'd have to play the PC version of the first one to have it look that good.
It's incredible.
So, I mean, I love the first one. I played it on PlayStation. I played it on PS4 Pro, and then I played it on PS5 when they updated it, and I played it on PC. Like, I am all in for this one, no question.
I think most people are.
Sucker Punch has never made a bad game. Sucker Punch has
really
never made anything less than a good game.
You're right. Although I'll say this, I did go back to my old website. I went on the Internet Wayback Machine and checked out Street Level Gaming, and I went and read my old review for Rocket Robot on Wheels, and I laid into that game hardcore.
Yeah,
I railed that game.
I loved that game
when it came out.
I really enjoyed
it. Just reading that website, I was blown away. Just looking at how my writing has improved since then. It was just crazy. I hadn't read it in like 10 years or whatever.
Oh, the crazy Philly boy doesn't like the cute robot on a roller coaster. Who could have guessed?
Yep. So anyway, that is...
Hire me, Matt Casamassina. I'm controversial.
Please hire me. Yeah, I would have loved to work with that guy back then. So anyway, that's Ghost of Yotei. And it's coming to PS5 next year. Next up, Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered. This had been leaked way before this announcement. Yeah, we knew about this a long time ago. But I'll say this, Matt. Along with Metal Gear Solid 3, Delta, Snake Eater, whatever the hell they're calling it, this is another game that, holy crap, the upgrade is, like, huge. Like, as you said, the facial animation is a big upgrade, but just the character models in general.
People don't seem to think so, but
really?
I'm like, you haven't played the first
in a long time.
In a while, if you think that.
To me, this is drastic. I was like, wow, okay. Like, this is worth the I didn't know if it was going to be worth the remaster. I think it is now.
Yeah, I think they basically, technologically, they are bringing this up, in presentation, they're bringing this on par with Forbidden West.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is 100% worth it.
Yeah,
like absolutely. For one thing, Child Aloy doesn't look like a mutant anymore. That helps. The change, fixing all the facial animation, because like if you even on PC, because I did play most of the PC version of the first one after they fixed it, and everybody's still got a pretty. Everyone looks like they had too much Botox. Like it's like no one's face is really emoting at all. They're just sort of babbling the lines. And this is night and day.
I mean, everything about this looks so much better.
For $10, 100%.
Yeah,
100% worth it.
Yeah, this is coming out on Halloween, so it's not much longer to wait.
Yeah, right up against Dragon Age. Like, can you release something Horizon that isn't going to be swallowed by another release immediately, guys?
There are literally 5.
That's why they have
semi-big games.
That's why the next single player Horizon isn't due for like 7-8 years, because they got to wait to release it a week before the next From game. Man, Elden Ring 2 is going to come out a week after Horizon 3. You know that.
October is a great month for games. The next few episodes of GameFace are going to be all sorts of kick-ass. I'm just telling you. But this comes out on Halloween with like 5 or 6 other big games on Halloween for PS5 and PC. It features over 10 hours of re-recorded conversations, new mocap. Obviously, the graphics are drastically improved. Yeah. Here's the messed up part, though, Matt, is once they announced this, the same day they went back and increased the price of the original version of the game.
The PS4 version?
Yes.
What was that? Like $10 at this point?
And not anymore. Now it's like $40 or whatever. That was some shady crap, man. I was like, what? That's pretty lame. But anyway.
That's how you know it's true that there's so many. Half the people have not upgraded from PS4
That's how you know. Yep, that's a good point. So anyway, again, coming out on Halloween.
You won't give us $500. We're gonna gouge you for this one.
Yeah. Well, next up, for those of you who maybe bought that new PS5 Pro or bought yourself a PlayStation 5 Slim, there are new colors on the way. They're called the Chroma Collection. They are these weird, they're kind of like the wraps that you see on a lot of the Teslas in LA that have this weird iridescent like shimmer and they change colors.
At least on a PS5, it's not going to blind the other people on the road.
Yep. But this is like, I also watch on YouTube these guys who paint like cars with this crazy black color that almost makes something look like it doesn't exist. Have you seen it?
Oh, the ultra black?
Yeah. Well, then they spray this stuff over top of that crazy black, and those cars look insane.
I probably wouldn't do it because my current car is old. It's going to be 9 years old next week.
Yeah.
So, but if I got another one, because I always get black cars. And
Me
stuff,
too.
I've thought about getting that ultra black with the iridescent over it. Like I've thought about using that to put a Decepticon symbol on the hood of the car, so you could only kind of see it from a certain angle.
Certain lights, yeah, that would be freaking sweet, man. But anyway, that's what these colors are. There are plates coming, so you'll be able to do up your PS5 Pro and your PlayStation 5 Slim in these colors. And obviously, as you can see in this trailer, there's also controllers coming. So if you want to buy a controller that matches your plates, you can absolutely do that. So very quick on the draw with this stuff for PS5 Slim and PS5 Pro, where we had to wait, like a year and a half for the base PS5 before we got colored plates.
Yeah, although to me, I'm kind of like, you know what, guys? Maybe you could have had it be a different color out of the box.
Right.
If you're charging
Instead
$700
of just the white
for
again. I hear you. I agree. I think it would be better if it was black. Then people would know
it's a different thing.
Yeah, it would help. So anyway, that's the Chroma Collection for PS5. Again, both for Slim and PS5 Pro once the Pro launches. Next up, Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1 and 2 coming to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the first Soul Reaver. It launches December 10th, so not much longer to wait. But, Matt, I would say that it feels like they haven't done a ton of work on these.
No, they tweaked some models. I mean, they obviously did, but I think they needed to tweak the lighting. There's some shots of the larger bosses in this, and it's just textures stretching across these huge low poly models that don't.
I mean,
it doesn't. I mean, I'm glad this is going to be available and playable and like on a modern thing. I mean, great. Like the more people remember this series existed, the better. Like that looks awful. That looks terrible.
Even redone, it looks terrible.
Yeah. Like I think it's worse when they go to read it because
it's
all just flat lighting. There's nothing hiding the flaws. Like,
well, in the original PlayStation, it blurred things. Yeah. So it let your imagination kind of fill in the blanks a little bit.
I think they maybe only went about as half as far as. I mean, I don't imagine this had a huge budget or anything, but I think I would have tried to push it a little further than that. But look, you're not really here for the visuals. You're here for Amy Hennig's writing.
Yeah.
And Michael Bell and Simon Templeman's voice acting. And that's all here and intact and great. So I mean, I'm here to experience that story.
I love how it says captured on PS5 at the
bottom. Like you wouldn't believe this is real time. Otherwise,
That's hilarious. Fire Native says, Matt, I had a black truck and had black stickers in the back window, and one was a Decepticon symbol. Nice. So there you go. Kindred spirits. This was also, by the way, completely ruined. Like at Comic-Con, they had figurines for this out in public way before they actually announced the game.
Which had the little placards had the actual logo for this game on it. It wasn't because it's like you just put Soul Reaver up. It's okay. They're making figures of Soul Reaver. There's a lot of nostalgia things, but this literally said Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remastered collection. It was
Yep. So anyway, that's coming on December 10th to PS4 and PS5.
I kind of wish they'd included Defiance in this because that sort of completes the story.
Yeah.
But like maybe we'll get another collection. But it's like, what do you do for another collection? Because then you're like, well, you put Blood Omen 2 in there because Blood Omen 2 is terrible.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it'll happen.
And then I think the first one is already available on PlayStation Classics now.
Yeah.
That one's a decent little Zelda clone that was a little too edgy for its own. That was Silicon Knights. That was back in the day.
It was, yeah. And then next up was something that you guys let us know about last week during the show, which was at Pal World, was shadow launching for PlayStation 5. But since this was announced, all kinds of crazy stuff has happened because don't forget, Nintendo is suing Pal World. We also got more clarity on that this week. It appears that Nintendo actually filed patents specifically to target Pal World. Like, it knew it was going to sue Palworld, and so it started getting patents for this stuff that it is now suing Palworld over.
Interesting.
So anyway, this game did in fact launch in the US on PlayStation 5. However, in Japan, it was not released and still hasn't been released, and is not going to be released.
Because that's the site of the lawsuit.
Until the court case is over. So there's still some funky stuff going on. Be happy if you live in the West. You're able to play
that
this
is something
now.
like I can't remember who it was. There was another company that patented certain gameplay element, game design elements, not to sue anyone, but no one else could patent them. It was like they're not stopping anyone else from using them. It was just so no one else could claim them.
Right.
So that happens sometimes. But in this case, it does look like Nintendo's patented things specifically. Like, all right, I guess we haven't done this in 25 years. So I guess we should probably lay the claim.
Yeah.
Man, imagine if Palworld had beaten them to that.
No, I know.
Oh.
But they didn't. So anyway, you can't play it in Japan still, but you can play it in the West, in both America and Europe.
Developers falling out of Windows by accident all of a sudden.
Yep. So anyway, that's Palworld for PlayStation 5. 1 second here. I do not have the trailer loaded for the next one, and here it is. Next up, we got the release date for Monster Hunter Wilds. It is coming out on February 28th, 2025. This release date trailer also features one of the franchise's flagship monsters called the White Wraith, which I am not familiar with, but maybe some of you guys are. This game, we didn't mention this during Tokyo Game Show discussion earlier in the show, but this was the game of the show at Tokyo Game Show. It was playable there. This is the game that everyone was talking about. Let's just be honest. I mean, Capcom has just been blowing this game out every chance it gets. So it put out this trailer, and then the next day it put out like the extended release date trailer. Like,
it also had a Transformers announcement.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
They're doing a Optimus Prime Rathalos figure.
Yeah.
Which actually looks pretty good.
They also announced the special editions for this, and in Japan, you get a bike. Like, we're talking about like the ultra expensive ones. You get a bike, and then in Europe, you get a guitar. Like a real guitar. So Capcom is banking on this game doing gangbusters, and I think that's a pretty smart bet.
Probably.
It was undoubtedly game of the show at Tokyo Game Show.
What do you get in America? A gun?
Yeah. I don't think they've announced like that version yet for America. At least I haven't seen it.
At least that would be on target with the fucking
with
title.
the culture, and with the title. You're right. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway,
it's not Monster Biker. It's Monster Hunter.
And again, it's coming out on February 28th, and this is next gen only, but it's PS5, Xbox Series, and PC.
And isn't it this gen?
It is now the current gen only. Yeah, that's the way we should phrase it. Again, that's February 28th, 2025, so not too much longer to wait for that one. Again, February is looking like a freaking awesome month for video games. There's no other way to put it. Next up, we got the first look at DLC for Astrobot. Astrobot is going to have new speedrun levels, and it's going to have 10 new special bots that you need to rescue. I feel like this may have just been like, oh crap, this game's a massive hit now.
No, I think this was planned. Because the new bots are Helldivers too.
Oh.
And it's just like, you probably didn't have time to get that.
Yeah, that's not a last minute thing. Yeah.
But it's just like, that's a reaction to Helldivers.
Yeah, it's success for sure. I'll take it more Astrobot, no problem.
100%.
Will I speedrun it? Probably not, but maybe a little bit.
I'll try it. But you try to make me speedrun the Lost Button challenges, you can go fuck yourself.
Yeah, what'll happen is I'll try 1 or 2 levels. I'll realize how terrible I am, and I won't try it again. I'll see the leaderboard and be like, welp, I'm never going to crack that.
Stellar Blade.
Yeah.
So it's stuff that came out this year.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to keep the synergy going. But anyway, that's the first DLC. That's free, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to pay for that one. Do you think we're going to get paid DLC for Astrobot?
I don't know. I think if we do, it'll be down the line. Because I feel like they really didn't expect it to be.
I don't think anybody did.
As highly rated as it was. And it didn't actually sell tremendously. But I think it's going to have legs, especially going into the holidays. I think a lot of people are going to get this as a Christmas gift for people.
And they should. And they should be very happy if that shows up under the Christmas tree, without a doubt. There's a couple things about PlayStation 5 Pro. Basically, they're just adding more games to the list of old games that are enhanced by PlayStation 5 Pro. I mean, that's going to be a thing now for the next 3 years. Games coming online for PS5 Pro that are now enhanced using the new console. And then they showed the first boss fight for Dragon Age, the Veilguard, as a boss fight of the Blighted Dragon. Up until now, they had not shown a big boss confrontation. We don't have time to kind of watch the whole thing here, unfortunately, so I'm going to skip ahead through some of the B-roll so you can actually see the boss instead of all the pomp and circumstance leading up to it. How did you feel about seeing this?
I didn't.
You haven't seen this yet?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm kind of fine. I mean, it looks like Dragon Age.
Yeah. This whole game feels like Dragon Age, but I think that's what people want.
Right. It does look better. Like, it doesn't look as... Like, there is playing Inquisition again. I'd forgotten how much it feels like everything's kind of made of paper.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just
Yeah.
the Frostbite engine just does not. And look, it's crashing. It crashes a bunch. Weird things keep happening. This looks like everything here feels like it's much more concrete.
Yeah.
Interaction with the ground, things like that.
Yep.
So cool. I mean, cool. It's a cool looking dragon. You're doing the same thing. I mean, it looks very similar. I mean,
I do think this is what people want, though.
Sort of. I mean, look, this is going to come down to whether the story's any good.
Yeah,
that's it.
You're right.
Are the characters good? Are the romances good? Is the story any good? Does it wrap the Dragon Age series up properly? That's what this thing lives or dies on. Like, the combat in these games has been hit or miss from the start, basically. Some people love the first one's combat. Some people hate the first one's combat. Some people think it got better over time. Some people think it got worse over time. Like, there's no one's 100% happy with everything in terms of the gameplay of these games in any of the three games.
Yeah.
So really what you're going for here, I think the fandom in particular, like, they just want the writing to be good.
It feels like since Mass Effect, Andromeda, and Anthem, BioWare fans just want BioWare to make a freaking BioWare game.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, I think they're seeing this and being like, "That's Dragon Age. That's what I want."
For all my sorta. I mean, I think like you don't know till you play this thing, really, because it's so in with the tone and the feel and the progression and the characters and the interactions and the how those relationships evolve over the course of the game.
That's a big part.
Like the playing Inquisition again is so it's I'm not even a huge Dragon Age fan. I mean, Inquisition's probably the best of the three, I would say, but like there's even going through that, I'm like, and comparing it to like the experience of playing Andromeda and Anthem, it's just like, oh, this was the last BioWare game, really. Like when it really comes down to it, this is
the last legit.
When people say they want Dragon Age 4 to live up to their expectations, they're talking about Inquisition, not just in the sense of it's the last Dragon Age game, but it's the last time BioWare really delivered what BioWare was famous for delivering.
Yeah, what fans wanted for sure. So there you go, and obviously that game's coming up here this month as well. This month is awesome for game releases. And
I think, by the way, I think that's one of the biggest sources of disappointment in that GreedFall 2 thing is that the direction they chose to go with GreedFall 2, it's no longer on that trajectory to make spiders kind of the new BioWare.
No, you're right.
Regard.
Yeah,
like that's not going to be.
Yeah, that's going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, you're going backwards there.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, I'm really excited for Dragon Age: Veilguard. I'm excited to play it this month.
Yeah. I mean, of anything else this month?
Yeah,
sure.
Yep, I think it should be pretty.
I didn't. The two most highly anticipated games for me this month are two games that I normally wouldn't think I'd be looking forward to. Would be Dragon Age and Sonic and Shadow.
Oh, really?
Because I don't know if you've seen some of the cutscenes in that, but like there is no need to go that hard, sirs. But you have. Like the fight with Shadow and that other thing, robot thing. I'm like. What the hell was that? Like, that was really good.
They've done a lot of more work on that game than I thought they were going to.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, big time.
I was impressed.
Yep. Next up, Dynasty Warriors Origins. And I just got to say, this game on the site's doing big numbers. This seems
pretty cool.
You guys aren't liking it or commenting on it, but as far as the view counts are concerned, this is one of the biggest games from this week. It's
a huge question. The curiosity about it is very understandable.
There's a huge contingency of lapsed Dynasty Warriors fans.
Yeah.
And that haven't been satisfied by a game in the series in a long time. And I think this one looks like it might be the one. Obviously, it's an open world game. It also incorporates a lot more strategy. They've talked that the plot is supposed to be a much bigger part of the game, whereas I can't remember a single Dynasty Warriors plot from the past. So anything is going to be an improvement. They also announced the release date. It is coming January 17th of next year, so not much longer to wait for this one as well. It does feature a brand new nameless hero. They haven't said whether you can create the hero or not. All the trailers have the same hero, so I don't know.
Usually, I mean, in the past, you usually pick male or female, and you just sort of evolve the hero's like abilities however you see fit.
Yeah.
Like weapon choice.
But the look of the hero usually stays the same.
Yeah, as I recall, it's usually just pick generic character model, one or two, basically. Sometimes you can pick a head, I think.
This game looks intriguing. I mean, it definitely has a lot more enemies.
Dynasty Warriors, the Musou games always have such huge potential, and like I think everybody's always a little interested to see if they actually do it this time. You know? It feels like there's a Game of the Year nominee in this series somewhere. If you ever do it right the way it needs to be done, and I think every time it's almost the Sonic cycle, right? Where it's like it comes out and you're disappointed, and then the next one gets shown, you're like, maybe this time.
You don't want to give up hope. I hear you.
And eventually, in that cycle for the Musou stuff, eventually you see something, you're like, oh, that doesn't look very good. Again, I do think they've come pretty close in places. I think the Fire Emblem, the last Fire Emblem one, the three hopes, was that what it was called?
Three Houses? No, Three Hopes.
Three Houses was the actual
RPG. Yeah.
That might be the best Musou game.
I think it is. It's the one I've enjoyed the most. That's for sure. It's
up there.
You would hope they would take some cues from that and incorporate them into this. We'll see.
Like to think.
But again, it is coming out on January 17th. And this is also current gen only PS5, Xbox Series, PC. They announced Alan Wake, the Lake House DLC. The trailer's 10 seconds. We're not going to show it. It's not worth it. It is set in an eerie new location on the shores of Cauldron Lake. What else did they say about it? No, it's within the Federal Bureau of Control's research station. So they're tying the two franchises together there and blah, blah, blah. And then they showed...
The Remedy-verse continues.
Yep, it does. And then they showed Stellar Blade Cross Nier Automata DLC. I did bring this trailer along because I knew some of y'all would want to watch it. For obvious reasons. They also announced the photo mode for this. Oh God,
good luck, everybody.
The world is gonna end.
Yep.
Oh man. I don't want to be on the internet for the first 24 hours after this thing launches because it's gonna be insane. But yeah, so Nier Automata and Stellar Blade, they seem like that match kind of makes
like a
sense.
pretty natural matchup. Yeah.
As far as this kind of crossover stuff goes, I think that one makes as much sense as a lot of the other ones. And then they showed and announced a release date for Lego Horizon Adventures. It is coming out November 14th. And they also announced a bunch of pre-order bonuses.
Well, thank God Assassin's Creed Shadows got away from that.
Yeah, because it could have spelled doom. Are you excited for this game?
Not really.
No. It's not really working for me either.
I'm kind of over the Lego thing.
Also, this has world building in it where you build your own like Lego land or whatever, which I always forget about with this game. But yeah, there's this big world building element to it that I think kids will love. Will I love it? Probably not.
I don't know. I played a lot of Lego games in my time, and I feel like they've shown me what I'll be like. That Lego Star Wars Complete Saga thing really kind of broke me.
Me too.
Because it was not.
We waited so long for it, and we were so excited for it. And then it just didn't deliver. I hear you. It kind of soured Lego games for me for a while. No matter what the license.
I'll probably poke at this a bit, though. I mean, I like Horizon enough that I'll probably give it a chance. Especially now that there's no Assassin's Creed competing with it on the same day. That frees me up to...
That helps this game big time.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
It really does. I mean, I'm going to play it for sure. But I'm just not all that excited for it right now. I hope it proves me wrong. I hope it ends up being really good, and I'm pleasantly surprised by it. But we'll see. And then they showed... Oh, I didn't bring this one either. Give me a second here. They showed what I think, Matt, might be the ugliest controller that has ever been announced. They showed a Fortnite controller for PlayStation 5. They've waited all this time to release a Fortnite controller for PlayStation 5, and this is it. This is what they came up with. It looks like my 8-year-old nephew made this, and maybe that's the idea.
I think that might be the point. Yeah.
They're like, it looks like you made it, but literally, it looks like my 8-year-old nephew made this controller, and was like, yeah, just put a bunch of stuff on it, and that's good enough. Like
that's
yikes.
Not tops.
Nope, I'm gonna take a big old pass on that one, and then the final thing we're gonna talk about.
Where are we dropping, bro? What the hell?
Yep. And then the final thing we're going to talk about is not this and not this. It is The Midnight Walk, which is this really cool kind of stop animation, claymation game. This is not just a PlayStation game. This is coming to other platforms as well. The strapline for it reads, a dark fantasy adventure made of clay, coming to PS5 and PlayStation VR 2 in spring 2025. Step into a handcrafted world and journey through 5 eerie tales of fire, guiding your little lantern friend, Potboy, while outsmarting the flame-eating monsters lurking in the shadows. And this is just all about the art style and the work that's gone into this. Has a little bit of that Harold Halibut element to it, where it's like the studio really went above and beyond to come up with a new art style that kind of stands out. It's not particularly attractive, though.
No, claymation often isn't.
You're right, it often isn't. But there's no other game that looks like this, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to find games that don't look like other games anymore. So there were other indie games that were in this presentation. This was the one that caught my eye that I wanted to put in front of you guys. Again, it is called The Midnight Walk, and again, it is coming to other platforms. And that's it for the Sony State of Play. They did announce that Dino Crisis, you mentioned this earlier, that Dino Crisis and Blood Omen Legacy of Kain are coming to PlayStation Plus before the end of the year. And that's it. How would you rate that State of Play, Matt? Letter grade.
Like a C+, I guess.
Yeah, I think I'd go a little higher. I think I'd give it like a B, B-. Having a huge first-party game in there, big deal. Last couple State of Plays had like smaller first-party stuff. To me, Ghost of Yotei is big time Sony first party game, so that bumps it up a little bit for me. And then the other
same
filler,
for me.
Yeah, seriously. And then I thought the other filler was pretty good. Like there wasn't anything there I was like, why is this in here? Like
no, just nothing that really
sets the world on fire.
Yeah.
But anyway, there you go. That's Sony State of Play for September 2024. We have one more game to talk about, but before that, it's time for New York Sneaker Society's Sneaker of the Week. What's up, everyone? Shane here, and one thing you may not realize about me is that I am a total sneakerhead. That's right, I've been collecting Nike sneakers since the early 90s. My favorites are Air Max 95 and Air Max 97. Now, one thing that's different about me from your typical sneakerhead is that I actually wear the sneakers, and because of that, they can get dirty. And that is where New York Sneaker Society comes in. Using their advanced shoe cleaning products, I turned an old pair of Nikes that looked like this into this. With their cleaning products, your sneaker life can go from a year to 5 or more. I know that. I have shoes that are like 30 years old that I still wear because I've cleaned them. You can also lower your carbon footprint, by keeping your kicks looking fresh. For my daily drivers, I also appreciate New York Sneaker Society's Refresh Spray to keep them smelling great and staying crisp. Head to nysneakersociety.co/sifted to clean your shoes like a pro at home and get 10% off your order. That's right, that's nysneakersociety.co/sifted for 10% off. Hey guys, did I tell you that there's something that you may not know about me? I'm a sneakerhead. That's all Erebus is commenting there. I mean, you're right. You keep running the same ad over and over, but that's the idea. You run it over and over so it gets embedded into your brain, and you go to nysneakersociety.co/sifted, and you use that URL to get 15% off instead of 10% off. Even if you're not a sneakerhead, you could literally buy a kit for like $20-$30 after the discount, and you could save a pair of shoes in your closet for that amount instead of going out and buying a new pair of shoes for like $100, $150, or if you're really into sneakers, like $200. I mean, that's kind of what sneakers cost now. It's kind of crazy. So anyway, if you have an old pair of sneakers, an old pair of boots, or any old shoes just laid in your closet and you left them for dead, go to nysneakersociety.co/sifted to get yourself a kit, and you will be shocked at how you can revive those shoes, and it will take you like 20 minutes, and you will put those shoes on right away and wear them out of the house. I guarantee it. Again, go to nysneakersociety.co/sifted.
As you walk from wafting sounds out of your house, you did what in the sink?
Yeah, my wife doesn't care. No. She's like, you can do whatever the hell you want.
I'm just saying, most houses, I think, maybe don't do that in the kitchen sink.
Yeah? Well, where would you do it?
Bathtub.
No, not the bathtub, like the bath room sink, maybe.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it bathtub. You can rinse it away easier.
Yeah, I guess.
I've
been cleaning my shoes since I was like a skater. Back in my teens.
I wouldn't put my shoes to clean them on a surface that I use to clean my hands and cook food in.
Oh, well, then you just rinse it. It all goes down. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, we throw like rotten food into our sink into the garbage disposal. Like a little bit of dirt from the shoes, no big deal.
Oh, you pick up some amazing stuff from the sidewalks.
That's true, actually. I actually have been cleaning my shoes since I was in like middle school. Like playing on the basketball team, like we all bought the same shoes, and like midway through the season, they get so scuffed and like screwed up. I would scrub them with the toothbrush back then. I've been doing it my whole life.
I've never cleaned a shoe.
No? A lot of people don't.
Well, because with my shoes don't really get all that dirty. The problem with my shoes, because when you're saying I do have a couple pairs of shoes that I'll be rescue, but they're not dirty. The soles have
wore through them.
Yeah,
that happens too.
I need a sole repair kit.
To be fair, New York Sneaker Society's kit cannot fix that.
No.
They will not resole your shoes, unfortunately.
And I don't think it's probably not worth resoling a $70 pair of shoes. That's one of the. You ever have one of those pairs of shoes where you're just like, I need to replace this pair of shoes, and you go to like all the shoe stores again, like, I can't find a pair of shoes I like as much as those shoes.
That's why I wore Air Max 95s. Yeah. Literally from 1995 when they came out, I still buy pairs of them. They're still huge. Like people still buy Air Max 95s to this day. I bought them only for like 15 years. Like I did get like a couple pairs of Air Max 97s in there. But I just kept buying 95s. To me, they're the best sneakers ever made, and they're still the best sneakers on the planet. Like, if you are looking to invest in a good pair of sneakers that are worth $150 or $200, get Air Max 95s. And then go and buy a kit from New York Sneaker Society and clean them when they get dirty, and you will have them for a long time. I have 95s I bought in 95, and I clean them, and I still wear them. Again, I know you guys think I'm crazy. I'm telling you, I've been doing this my whole life. Get yourself a cleaning kit. You will be shocked. One thing we like to do with this sponsorship, though, is focus on one of the smaller games of the week. And this is another one of those weeks where there was one game clear and away that you guys attached to more than any other. And I was surprised by this. It's a game called Fragpunk. It is a first-person shooter, free-to-play, that is coming to PlayStation and Xbox Series. It's 5 versus 5. It is a hero-based shooter, which normally these games do not do well on SIFTD, but for whatever reason, this one has really clicked with you guys. There's a beta coming that starts on October 10th, and you can register right now in the Xbox Insider Hub, which we just talked about in last week's episode, because they killed the Ambassador program to drive people to this Insider Hub. So if you want to get in on the beta, it happens on October 10th. And again, you can sign up at the Xbox Insider Hub if you want to get in on it. I think the plan is to have the game out before the end of the year. We'll see if it makes it or not. But for whatever reason, this game really caught your eye. It was far and away the most viewed piece of media for a smaller game on SIFTD this week. Again, the game is called Fragpunk, and it is coming to PlayStation and Xbox Series. Okay. It's time to get to our final topic. And I do appreciate, Matt, that people were wondering if we were going to cover this game in the chat just a minute ago. And sure enough, we are. We're going to talk about Disney Epic Mickey Rebrushed, which is a drastic remaster of the original Epic Mickey, which was a Wii exclusive. And I'll just say this, like, I didn't actually get to play this. Matt played it, so he's going to handle most of the discussion here. But I did play the original.
Yeah.
And
I reviewed the original. And
holy crap. Like, I did not realize how awesome this game looked.
Yeah.
Underneath the poor resolution and the smears of the Wii, this was a gorgeous game.
Yeah, the most important thing about this version is that it finally does justice to the art.
Yes. It's incredible. Like, I literally stopped, like, watching it and paused it to check out some of the art in this.
Like, a lot of people who played it on the Wii don't even realize that Mickey is constantly, like, generating blobs of ink that are flying up off of him.
Yeah. Like, you could hardly see it.
It's hard to see. The image quality was just not up to snuff. It was a shame it was stuck on the Wii.
Yeah, and then this obviously has a unique selling proposition where you're using a paintbrush to redraw in parts of the world and erase parts of the world. The plot of the game is you're seeing here in this opening cinematic. Mickey comes down. What's the name of this short from Disney? The Sorcerer's Apprentice or something?
Sorcerer's Apprentice is the
what it's based on.
Well, it's the beginning of Fantasia.
Right.
Is what it's from.
And this is kind of a spoof on that. Mickey sneaks in. He starts...
The wizard Yen Sid.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Yeah. He starts using magic, and he gets sucked into this world, and he needs to use the magic paintbrush to get back out of the world.
He ruins the world.
Right.
What
Everything gets sucked into it.
He builds the wizard's building a place for the forgotten characters of Disney to live, and Mickey fucks around with it and ruins it and unleashes the blot and the thinner on the thing and then runs away and then
goes to sleep.
Well, then he has his whole successful career over the years, and eventually the monster is big enough to finally find him and pull him into the world.
Yeah.
And he has to kind of restore it because it's his fault.
Yeah.
And the world is led by Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, which was Walt Disney's original cartoon creation before Mickey.
Yep.
They lost the rights to for a long time, and he just wasn't acknowledged for a long time. And this game brought Oswald back into the Disney canon, basically. This is the first appearance of Oswald in 40, 50 years.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Warren Spector very intentionally wanted to do that and have him. I think this is the first time Oswald and Mickey ever met in something.
I didn't know that either.
So this was for Disney nerds, this was a big deal that Oswald came back. Now you see Oswald, Oswald merch is everywhere in the parks and people wear the Oswald ears and stuff. That all comes from this game.
Wow, that's awesome.
This game is what kind of brought all that back.
This is how I went to not Studio 33,
Club 33.
Club 33.
No, you did that through Epic Mickey 2.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
I knew it was the Epic Mickey franchise.
Because I missed that because I was sick that day.
No.
So I didn't get to go to Club 33.
I remember I walked in there and
Jeremy Hoffman was sending me fucking texts about it. He's like, it's so amazing. I'm like, shut up.
It really wasn't, though.
I don't. Club 33 is not.
It was kind of a dump.
You know how much that costs a year?
Oh, I don't even want to know.
$35,000 to be a Club 33. And it's limited. You have to be chosen. There's a couple currently who I guess they're suing Disney for kicking them out.
I saw that.
Yeah. They've spent $100,000 on it. They're like, we have to get it. But I'm like, oh my god,
not worth it.
So weird.
Yeah,
no, it's not worth it at all. It's the only place you can get alcohol.
In the park. Yeah. Believe me, everybody told me everything about it when we were walking in there, and I'm like, and so. So anyway, let's get back to the game. It is a 3D platformer, and it does have this unique mechanic where you literally use the brush, and we'll see it in the B-roll here in a minute, where to draw in empty spaces in the walls, it'll create doors that you can walk through. You use the thinner to sometimes wipe the paint away, which will reveal stuff.
So you can go through things.
Yeah.
There's a morality system, a rough morality system where you use using more thinner makes you a little more selfish or evil, and using paint makes friends with people.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of choices to you can go for treasure or help someone, and the game will remember that. And it's Warren Spector. He's the guy who made Deus Ex. He's always going to put stuff
and he
like
does
that
have a
in
little
there.
bit of those elements in there.
Yeah. There's a lot of times you have these machines that are either going to restore or destroy something, and you either fill it with paint or thinner. Filling it with paint does a nice thing, and filling it with thinner does a more, I think you would call it mischievous thing. He's leaning into the idea of Mickey as sort of a troublemaker, which he was in the early cartoons.
Yeah.
You can kind of go either way. So it does feel like there's some choice to be made. It's mostly cosmetic, but it's there. And really just erasing and restoring the toon stuff is a really cool effect. You can really change the environment. It doesn't remember what you did at the time. You can go to another area of the level and come back and everything will be reset.
And that is annoying.
But
and it does break immersion a little bit, but it's a Mickey Mouse game.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be that detailed, really.
Yeah. What struck you the most about playing this all these years later? What about this game where you're like, oh, I forgot about that, or I had forgotten, this important element, or are there things?
I forgot how high he jumps.
Yeah.
I forgot how long you're stuck in the tutorial section.
It is really long.
The Goblin Town stuff, before you get thrown out in the equivalent of Main Street, which is Mean Street. It takes a while to get through all that stuff.
Yeah. These little vignettes are cool that they do to move the plot forward. These little 2D animated shorts.
Yeah, and they work pretty well. They look nice. They're done in kind of the style, a style of some of the old advertisement stuff they would do. No voice acting really. There's narration at the beginning, but for the most the little gremlin guy does have lines, but a lot of it is just really text out.
Yeah,
which is fine. Although I guess to some degree you'd probably you'd have to play it with your kids if they can't read yet. Because it does feel like it would be good for younger kids.
Yeah.
Although it is a little intense at places.
Yeah. I don't know if I would want my 4 or 5 year old playing parts of this game.
Yeah, it's
it might give him nightmares.
It is kind of American McGee's Mickey Mouse. A little bit. There's Mickey Mouse in a
got a little bit of an edge to it
time.
for sure. Yeah.
Really, it's more like a lot. Like, as you get to out the wasteland and all these things, it's everybody's just kind of miserable.
Yeah,
it's like that's the problem.
It's dark. I mean, it is a dark game for sure. But Fantasia's dark in certain ways. Yeah.
Old animation stuff is.
It
dark.
is. Like,
we'll watch some of that '70s. Even
Fantasia's pretty
stuff.
Incredible, actually.
Yeah.
Can you get like a Blu-ray version of that now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Every Disney movie is on everything.
Is it 4K?
Yeah.
Wow. I want to watch that.
Some of their up-reses aren't amazing, but they're on there. It's also on Disney Plus.
Yeah,
all their movies are there.
I'll have to check it out.
So yeah, and essentially, you are going through all these different equivalents of Disneyland, and trying to restore everything as best you can, and get Oswald to not be mad at you anymore, and defeat the blot, and. To do that, you got to do a bunch of platforming puzzles.
Yeah,
essentially, and it mostly worked. Like they've, the gimmick in the Wii was obviously you use the Wiimote to aim.
Paint. Yeah.
In this, you're using the right stick to aim with the little reticle, which works fine.
It's
for the
fine.
Most part.
Yeah, you didn't need the Wiimote.
Didn't need it really. The only place that's really noticeable is the boss fights. When you fight the bosses. The boss fights were inevitably having to move around independently of aiming because in this it's done kind of like a shooter.
Circle strafe,
circle strafe. In boss fights, that you are generally on a set plane or a certain section of ground, and you have to aim independently of what direction Mickey's moving, because that's just how the boss fights are designed. So when you get to a boss fight, it changes so you can move Mickey around with the left analog stick, and then there's a giant reticle. Like a white circle. I would say it takes up about 10% of the screen. It's
wow.
Reticle. And you can move that around to aim at the parts of the boss you have to spray with the paint or the thinner.
Gotcha.
And the boss is also like you can either thin a boss out and destroy it, or you can paint them in and they will become your friend. Mm-hmm. So that's always the constant.
That to me was the best part of the morality system.
Yeah. And this here you can see, like, you can't get that treasure chest because you decided to save the gremlin that was on the catapult.
Right.
If you went and got the treasure chest, the gremlin would have been catapulted into the wall, and they would have all been mad at you.
I think people forget that the choices actually had a bearing in this game.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, you got the same reward.
Mm-hmm.
You got a bronze pin either way. Like, you either get the bronze pin out of that chest, or you rescue him and he gives you a bronze pin.
Yeah.
But it still makes it feel like you got to.
Yeah, you have some agency. Your decisions actually matter. They make a difference for sure. It was interesting watching this game again, and having played it all those years ago. I had forgotten so much about it. Mm-hmm. I was pleasantly surprised by the art, I think, most of all.
Yeah, the fact that you can really see all this stuff clearly now, and then they're really
just even the colors, the
animation,
pop so much more.
Like it's a better experience, and I really like this game. I mean, I gave this game a 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
Back in the day,
I think it deserved it. Yeah,
I loved it. It was good celebration of the stuff without being saccharine, and it had a lot of like its own ideas, and it felt like a War Spectre game.
It was innovative at the time. It was groundbreaking.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it. How much are they selling this one for, though?
I think it's full price. I think it's
$60. But not 70 at least.
No, I don't have a problem paying 60 for this. Really, it's such an upgrade, and it's not like you've already bought like 3 versions of this over the years. Yeah. It's not like a constant remake. It's like they really went all out to make this a worthwhile remaster.
And it's also a pretty lengthy game.
Yeah, it's a generous game. There's a lot here. It's a big adventure. Like, Epic is not wrong.
Yeah, the crazy part about it is, like, we still haven't seen anything like this since.
No, I mean, just the second one. The bombed so hard it basically killed Junction Point.
Yeah, it really did. Yeah.
It was supposed to be a trilogy.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's too bad that they never got to do the third one.
Maybe someday.
Maybe.
Warren's still out there.
He is.
He's still making games.
Doing stuff. And he worked on this.
Yeah.
He worked with them on Purple.
I don't know what the studio was, actually.
Purple Crayon or Purple something.
But they did bring him in, which is great.
They brought him in, and he was a consultant, and they did a really good job. This was I think this really turned out well. I think these guys might be a new go-to remaster studio.
Or they're just really skilled and should be making damn games. Like.
Maybe. I mean, I get Blue Point vibes from this.
Me too. Yep. This might be a studio we're snatching up if
Maybe.
You're a platform holder. Honestly,
certainly worth keeping an eye on.
I mean, Nintendo certainly should be looking at this. This is right in its wheelhouse.
Purple Lamp, that's what it's called. Thank you,
I can see why we didn't remember the name of it. Swanland says there's also a New Game Plus as well. And Cinetike says, OG Fantasia blew me away as a kid. Me too, Cinetike. That's why I brought it up. Like, it's one of those moments that I remember. My dad specifically sat me down to watch Fantasia.
Famously...
and granted, he was a biker hippie, so I think he may have maybe toked up before we sat and watched it, but...
I mean, that was the main popularity of it. It bombed when it came out. It came out in 1940, I want to say. It's somewhere that was around.
Yeah. My dad was like, this is something you need to watch. It was
very experimental. Nothing like that had ever been done before, and it just didn't work out. But then it got re-released in the 60s, and all of a sudden, everybody liked it. And I can't imagine what the difference was. Maybe your dad would have had some insight on that.
I think he did.
Yeah, it found its audience in the 60s, and it's been a classic ever since.
Yeah. So you'd recommend people pick it up?
Yeah.
And it's available for everything, Switch as well.
On everything. If you
have you checked out the Switch version to see how it looks?
No.
Yeah,
I got it on PC.
Yeah.
And it looks great.
Okay.
Runs great, looks great, no problem.
That B-roll obviously was PlayStation 5 that you saw there, so...
I would imagine they're all pretty equivalent.
Yeah. Looks great. Plays great.
If you love this one back on the Wii, no question, pick it up. It's a better version. It's a better experience. If you've never played it, you should. It's like you said, there's nothing else like it.
Yeah, still, after all this time.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. That's Epic Mickey Rebrushed, and again, it's available for everything. And with that, now it's time for... That's right, it's time for Name That Game, where I show you 5 screenshots of a video game, and you try to guess the name of the game before this guy right here. A couple things before we get going. If you've won this year, do not play. You can only win once every calendar year. If you win, you won't get anything, and you ruin the game for somebody else. Would really like it if you do play PC games, because if you win, you do get a free PC game. So either if you play it, or you can give the code to somebody who's going to play it, that's cool. But make sure someone's going to play it. I don't want to buy a game for someone and it's just going to go into the ether and no one's ever going to use it. So make sure you do that. And then the final thing is the chat is in slow mode. So you only have one chat entry every 60 seconds. So make sure you make your chat entries count. There's nothing worse than just guessing and getting it wrong. And then the next screenshot comes up and you know the game and you can't type it in and you don't win. So make sure you're prudent with how you're putting in your chats. And with that, I think we're ready. Are you ready, Matt? Last week it was Returnal, and you guys got that on what? That was the second
one.
Yeah, the second image. I think
the plants.
Yeah, the plant. Well, yeah, the weird white plants gave it away. This one, I'm gonna say we're gonna get to the third. We'll see how it goes. I'm not always right about this stuff. We'll see. All right, chat. Are you guys ready for Name That Game? Matt's ready. Let's do this. In 3, 2, 1, go. And as always, just a ground texture. Nope. Body Harvest, no. Emperor Dread. Yakuza, no. Also keep in mind, guys, that you need to guess the exact entry in a franchise. So if you think it's Yakuza 2, you need to say Yakuza 2 or whatever. Control, no. Knights of the Old Republic, no. GTA 5, no. That's a good guess, though, actually. GTA 5. It's always interesting to see what ideas these screenshots elicit from people. And I've also noticed the last couple of months, people don't guess on the first image all that much. Silk Snake, I thought you left, bro. You're back. Skate 2, no. Death Stranding, no. Shenmue 1 Remake, no. That's a good... You saw the forklift. Good one. That's a good one too, Quick Capri, but unfortunately incorrect. But I think people have started bailing on the first image because they're just like, I'm not going to guess it. And then if the second one comes up, God of War 2, no.
There's not a lot of forklifts in God of War.
No. You're right, though. That forklift eliminates so many games.
Yeah.
It really does. Swanland says, I think I know, but can't guess. Okay. All right, I think we're good with the image 1. You guys very rarely get it on the first image, but you're pretty damn good at getting it on the second one. And here it is in 3, 2, 1, go. That's a good hint.
Sable?
Not Sable.
13.
You got it.
Okay.
Nice job. Oh my gosh, Matt Keil wins.
Been a while.
Matt Keil wins Name That Game. It has been a while.
I almost guessed that on the last picture because in the lower left corner it looked like cell shading.
I put it in there for that little corner for a reason. I put everything in here for a reason, guys. Like, if you notice a little thing on the edge, that's there on purpose. Like, make sure you pay attention to that stuff. Congratulations, Matt. Good job, man. Awesome job. So there you go. Unfortunately, there's no winner for Name That Game today. Matt Keil takes the victory.
I am the winner of Name That Game.
You are the winner.
No winner. Fucking erasure. What is this shit?
Okay, that's going to do it for GameFace episode 405. Before we go, I just want to say thanks to everybody in chat. You guys are awesome. You made this show way better like you always do. I don't know why other Patreon-driven podcasts don't incorporate their audience like we do. Maybe because their audience isn't as good as ours. That would be my guess. But anyway, you guys make our show better. So thank you for showing up here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. We are supported 100% at patreon.com/SIFTD. That's SIFTD. For just $4 a month, you get all our content early. This show 4 days early, Pachter a week early, all our other content at least 3 days early. Again, something that we do that other Patreons aren't doing anymore. We'd appreciate any help, even if you just give us $1 a month just because. We appreciate all of it. And then if you don't have any money, but you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can help us with Twitch Prime. If you're watching on YouTube, just go down below. Hooking it up the first time takes about 3 minutes. And then every month, just resubscribing to the channel literally takes 3 seconds. So if you're watching now, and you've already hooked your accounts together, please go right now to twitch.tv/SIFTDGames and give us a sub. That would be awesome. And if you don't have any money at all, you can still help us. Just like the show on YouTube, leave a comment on the show. You guys are way better at that now. Like, we are getting so many more comments from you guys than we did before. Please keep doing that. Keep it up, because if you haven't noticed, the views for the show have also gone up while you guys have been doing that. So it's working. So please keep doing that. Or if you're listening to this show on podcast services, leave us a review. Leave us a 5-star review. That will help the show bubble up when people search for video game podcast. There's so much stuff you can do to help us, even if you don't have any money, and we appreciate anything you do to try to help us at all. So we'll be back next week, same place, same time, twitch.tv/SIFTDGames at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Until then, have yourselves an awesome week full of awesome games. GameFace is up and out.